Chapter 29:36. If you two are here to stop me, then do it, Xiao Chun said coldly. Hearing this, the bee slave and Sure Song's expressions became very complicated. From the bottom of their hearts, they certainly didn't want to be Xiao Chen's enemy. Otherwise, they wouldn't have come here. However, looking at Xiao Chen's current appearance, it was obvious that he wouldn't back down. The bee slave and Sure Song had already thought of this. If there was still a possibility of backing down, Xiao Chen wouldn't have come to this step. The land of creation and Little Qing's actions had already touched Xiao Chen's bottom line. It could even be said that they had completely violated Xiao Chen's original intentions. However, looking at Xiao Chen, the bee slave said, Xiao Chen, do you know the consequences of doing this? You are going against the land of creation. Even if you don't think for yourself, you have to think for your children. Now, the only thing that Xiao Chun had scruples about was Xiao Yao, Xiao Lao, and the others. The bee slave knew that Xiao Chun valued his family very much. Therefore, the bee slave could only start from this aspect. However, Xiao Chun had already thought of this. Moreover, Dong Fengyin was already waiting for an opportunity to move and rescue Xiao Yao, Xiao Lao, and the others. Therefore, after hearing the bee slave's words, Xiao Chun didn't think much and directly spoke. How can the children of Xiao Chun be afraid of death? Bee slave, you don't need to say anything. If you want me to stop, I can. The land of creation also has to stop its actions against the other universes. This was the most basic bottom line. If the land of creation was still the same as the origin world, Xiao Chun would absolutely not stand on the same side as the land of creation. Hearing this, the bee slave chose to remain silent. It was obviously impossible for Xiao Qing to stop all of this. This was something that Xiao Qing had already decided on long ago. Even the beast's slave couldn't stop her. Moreover, if Xiao Qin wasn't willing to take a step back, would Xiao Qing be willing to take a step back? The difficulty of getting Little Qing to back down was definitely not any less than Xiao Chun. Moreover, from Little Qing's previous attitude, it was not difficult to see that she already had the intention to kill Xiao Chun and the others. Xiao Chun, you clearly know that this is impossible. After a moment of silence, the beast's slave slowly opened his mouth and said, it was indeed impossible to make Little Qing give in. Xiao Chun did not say anything about this. While the two sides were confronting each other, the marshalists of the various universes were constantly being transferred away. For this reason, Xiao Chun had specially opened a spatial passage to allow the marshalists of the various universes to be transferred away smoothly. All right, if you want to fight, then fight. If you don't, then leave. Neither side could convince the other, so Xiao Chun did not continue speaking. Instead, he directly ordered them to leave. However, as soon as Xiao Chun finished speaking, several terrifying presences appeared in the sky. Very soon, spatial cracks formed one after another. The natives of the land of creation, such as the old tree and other ancient voices, walked out of the spatial passage. At the same time, Little Qing's figure appeared before everyone. The sudden arrival of Little Qing with a group of experts naturally caused the bee slave and Sure Song's expressions to change drastically. The two of them knew very well what Little Qing's appearance here meant. Little Qing had obviously not come here to chat. As a matter of fact, Little Qing's gaze fell directly on Xiao Chun as soon as she appeared. Her eyes no longer had the usual calmness in them. On the contrary, they had become extremely cold. Her tone was icy as well. Xiao Chun, do you really want to go against me? The land of creation is no longer the land of creation I know. This is my decision. It's also the only way to defeat the origin world. Every war has a price. You should know that. I know, but it's not a price. It's a matter of belief. If I agree with you, then what's the point of me rebelling against the origin world? I can just rely on the origin world. Little Qing's face turned completely cold as the two of them conversed. What does Xiao Qin mean? Is he determined to go against the land of creation? Is he going against me, the spirit of the world? As the spirit of the world, Little Qing would not allow anyone in the world to rebel against her. Not the primogenitors, not Xiao Chun. The reason why Little Qing insisted on destroying the origin world and the primogenitors was because the primogenitors were a threat to her and had tried to rebel against her. Therefore, Little Qing had to destroy them at all costs. Now, Xiaoqian also wanted to rebel against her, so he could only face the fate of being destroyed. He didn't expect Little Qing to come so quickly. Moreover, it seemed like she had made up her mind. However, Xiaoqian didn't have much regret in his heart. When he had made this decision, Xiaoqian had already thought of everything. It was only a matter of time before he confronted Little Qing. He couldn't escape. The two of them looked at each other. Neither of them had any intention of retreating. Little Qing's gaze swept over Lin Yun, Mu Lingxian, and the others. Her face turned colder and colder. In the end, Little Qing said coldly, "Is this the final answer you're going to give me?" "Yes." "Good, very good. Xiaoqian, Lin Yun, if I can make you, I can also destroy you. Since you want to die, don't blame me." As soon as these words came out, there was no doubt that Little Qing wanted to kill Xiaoqian, Lin Yun, and the others. Since Xiaoqian's group had contacted the primogenitors without permission and even formed some kind of cooperation, the primogenitors still didn't choose to attack them even after Xiaoqian's group had given up on the Netherchild universe. Little Qing wasn't stupid enough to think that it was the primogenitors' problem. The reason those old fellas didn't attack was definitely because of Xiaoqian's group. Otherwise, those old fellas wouldn't have let go of such an opportunity. However, this undoubtedly touched Little Qing's bottom line. In addition, Xiaoqian was now determined to become enemies with the land of creation. He even kept moving the martial lists of various universes in front of Little Qing. This made Little Qing's killing intent explode. Since Xiaoqian didn't have the slightest intention of turning back, Little Qing could only kill them. Anyone who stood in her way must not be allowed to live. Upon hearing this, Xiaoqian didn't answer and just stared coldly at Little Qing. He had already thought of all this. Little Qing also shouted coldly under Xiaoqian's gaze, "Kill them." Upon hearing Xiaoqing's order, the old tree and other native creatures of the land of creation, as well as other ancient creatures, moved one after another. Only the bee slave and Sure Song were still standing on the spot. The others didn't have any deep friendship with Xiaoqian, so since Little Qing had given the order, they naturally had to carry it out. As for the bee slave and Sure Song, they were very conflicted and didn't know how to choose at all. Please add, vote, recommend. The error-free chapters of Sword Master Vast Expanse will continue to be updated. There are no advertisements on the website. Please add and recommend the Sword Master Vast Expanse. If you like Sword Master Vast Expanse, please add. Sword Master Vast Expanse is the fastest to update in the Sword Master Vast Expanse. Chapter 29:37. Following Little Qing's order, Old Tree, the Patriarch of the Stone Spirit Clan, the Patriarch of the Fire Spirit Clan, and the other experts all charged towards Xiaoqian's group. Although these people had some friendship with Xiaoqian's group when they were in the creation ground, they had no choice but to obey Little Qing's order. Xiaoqian faced off against the Old Tree, the clan leader of the Stone Spirit Clan, and the Wood Spirit Clan. All three of them were close friends with Xiaoqian, but at that very moment, they had all become enemies. To be honest, whether it was Xiaoqian, Wood Spirit, or Old Tree, none of them wanted to be enemies with each other. They should have been friends, but there was no other way. On one side was Xiaoqian, who would never give in, and on the other side was Old Tree and the others who would never disobey Little Qing's order. Xiaoqian, what you're doing is meaningless. As the saying goes, without destruction, there can be no construction. All of this is for the final victory. Wood Spirit obviously knew what Xiaoqian was thinking, so she went straight to the point. Although the four of them had already fought, Wood Spirit still hoped that Xiaoqian could change his mind. As long as Xiaoqian was willing to lower his head, Wood Spirit and the others would definitely beg Little Qing to forgive them. Even if Xiaoqian didn't participate in the battle against the Origin World, things wouldn't end up like this. She really didn't want to attack her former friends. However, facing Wood Spirit's persuasion, Xiaoqian smiled bitterly. There are some things that can be compromised, but there are some things that can't be done. Besides, is there any leeway in this matter? There is. As long as you lower your head, Brother Shao Chun, we will definitely risk our lives to save your life, said the patriarch of the Stone Spirit Clan. The patriarch of the Stone Spirit Clan, who had the most straightforward personality, was the most agitated at this moment. He didn't want to be enemies with Shao Chun, so he naturally hoped that Shao Chun would stop in time. As long as Shao Chun lowered his head, he would risk his life to save Shao Chen's life. Shao Chun would be lying if he said that he didn't dare to touch the three patriarchs of the Stone Spirit Clan. He could see that the three of them were sincere towards him. However, he really couldn't lower his head. Or rather, it was impossible for him to lower his head. As the saying goes, those who walk different paths cannot make plans together. At this moment, the conviction in Shao Chen's heart had completely collapsed. There's no need to talk nonsense. Everyone has their own masters. Let's go all out. It was useless to say anything. There was no way to resolve this matter. Hearing this, the three of them felt helpless. However, Shao Chun had already attacked with his full strength. Facing Shao Chun, who had unleashed his full strength, the three of them could only retaliate. It was 1 against 3. Furthermore, Mu Ling and the other two were all very powerful. To put it bluntly, they were not weaker than an ancient life form like Chun Yin. Hence, Shao Chun was unable to gain any advantage under the combined attacks of the three. However, Mu Ling and the other two clearly didn't have any killing intent. Thus, Shao Chun didn't feel much pressure for the time being. The four of them seemed to be engaged in an intense battle, but they were actually restraining themselves, including Shao Chun. All of this was naturally noticed by little Qing. Her expression became more and more unsightly as she stared fixedly at Shao Chen's group. Compared to Lin Yun's group, little Qing was clearly more concerned about Shao Chun. She could tell with a single glance that Mu Ling and the other two were going easy on Shao Chun. Otherwise, with their combined strength, even if they couldn't take down Shao Chun directly, it was absolutely impossible for them to end up in such a situation. From the looks of it, Shao Chun wasn't under much pressure at all. He was able to exchange blows with Mu Ling and the other two. If Mu Ling and the other two had gone all out, how could such a situation have occurred? Cold light constantly converged in her eyes. To be honest, little Qing really thought highly of Shao Chun. Unfortunately, Shao Chun didn't stand on her side in the end. Little Qing had never felt that she was in the wrong. Wasn't defeating the origin world and taking down all the primogenitors her ultimate goal? So what if she lost a few people in order to achieve this goal? Moreover, this world was insignificant to begin with. Even if all of them died, she could still create new living beings with her identity as the spirit of the world. Why would Shao Chun part ways with him just because of such a small matter and run away from him? Could it be that she was inferior to those inferior living beings in Shao Chen's heart? Shao Chun had actually abandoned her because of those ant-like fellows. This was what made little Qing the most furious. At the same time, this was the most contradictory point between Shao Chun and little Qing. In little Qing's eyes, all living beings in the world were a group of despicable fellows, pawns. So long as they were useful, little Qing didn't care about their lives at all. She even felt that it was their honor to be able to be used by her. After all, she was the spirit of the world, and she represented this world. She was their creator, and she had created everything in this world. However, Shao Chun did not think that way. He had risen from nothing and was one of the many beings in the world. Shao Chun had never treated the beings in the world as pawns, let alone as ants. This was the most fundamental difference between Shao Chun and little Qing, and it was also the reason why they couldn't reconcile at all. Little Qing's gaze grew colder and colder. The killing intent in her eyes grew denser when she saw that the three primogenitors were unable to take down Shao Chun. She didn't seem to have made any movements, but her figure instantly vanished on the spot. When she appeared again, she was already in front of Shao Chun. Little Qing didn't give the four of them any time to react. She had already struck Shao Chun with her palm. Since he was completely caught off guard, Shao Chun was directly sent flying. He was instantly sent flying and crashed into the ground below. With a loud bang, The ground was torn apart and dust rose. Xiao Chen's figure was instantly devoured by Yang Chun. My lord, the sudden attack of the spirit of the world had severely injured Xiao Chun with a single blow. This also stunned Old Tree, the stone spirit patriarch, and the wood spirit patriarch. They all looked at Little Qing with complicated expressions. Under the gazes of the three of them, Little Qing said coldly, I told you to kill them, not to put on a show for me. This is the first and last time. I don't want anyone to disobey my orders again. Little Qing's words were clearly filled with dissatisfaction towards the three primogenitors. From the beginning to the end, the three primogenitors hadn't used their full strength. Little Qing had seen it all. She had already given the order to kill Xiao Chun and the others, but the three primogenitors still went easy on them. This made Little Qing, who was already irritated, even more displeased. In response, the three primogenitors naturally nodded in fear and trepidation. What a joke! They didn't dare to have the slightest thought of disobeying Little Qing. Humph. Remember, they're no longer people of the place where I was created. You all need to be clear of your position and treat your enemies well. I do not wish for such a thing to happen again. Little Qing coldly snorted and said, Please add this to your collection, monthly votes and recommendations. Chapter 29:38. Little Qing's sudden attack made Xiao Chun unable to fight back at all. He was severely injured in one hit. Faced with Little Qing's angry roar, Old Tree and Wood Spirit remained silent. The three of them had not tried to kill Xiao Chun, but now it seemed that Little Qing had run out of patience. Little Qing's sudden attack made Xiao Chun unable to fight back at all. He was severely injured in one hit. Faced with Little Qing's angry roar, Old Tree and Wood Spirit remained silent. The three of them had not tried to kill Xiao Chun, but now it seemed that Little Qing had run out of patience. Although Little Qing thought highly of Xiao Chun and had a good relationship with Xiao Chun in the past, this did not mean that Xiao Chun could challenge Little Qing's bottom line without any scruples. Xiao Qing looked coldly at the place where Xiao Chun had fallen as soon as she finished speaking. As the dust slowly dissipated, Xiao Chen's figure gradually appeared in front of everyone. There was a trace of blood at the corner of his mouth, and he was also staring coldly at Xiao Qing. The two of them looked at each other. Xiao Chun was not surprised by Little Qing's sudden attack. This was within his expectations. Ever since he had attacked, Xiao Chun understood that he had completely fallen out with the land of creation. Xiao Chun, I'll ask you one last time. Live or die. It's your choice, Little Qing said to Xiao Chun with a cold gaze and an indifferent tone. Attacking the various universes was an established fact. Little Qing had to do it so early. If Xiao Chun was willing to stop before it was too late, Little Qing might let Xiao Chun go this time. However, Xiao Chun shook his head and refused without hesitation. Do you think there's a way back now? Xiao Chun had no intention of changing his mind at all. Since he had already made up his mind, he would not turn back. Seeing this, Little Qing's face darkened. She then pointed her finger, and the cyan light instantly went straight for Xiao Chun. Dense killing intent completely enveloped Xiao Chun. Clearly, Little Qing's attack was aimed at killing Xiao Chun. Faced with Little Qing's attack, Xiao Chun wanted to fight back with all his might. However, even though he was an ancient life form, Xiao Chun still felt powerless against Little Qing. Just as Little Qing had said, since he could make Xiao Chun and the others, he could naturally destroy them. Ancient life forms were nothing in front of Little Qing. It should be known that even the primogenitors were no match for Little Qing in a one-on-one situation, let alone an ancient life form like Xiao Chun. The green light flashed. Xiao Chun looked at Little Qing's attack with burning eyes. However, just as the green light was about to hit him, a figure suddenly blocked the attack for Xiao Chun. He did not know who they were, but they possessed progenitor realm cultivation. It seemed like they were martialists from various universes. This person stood in front of Xiao Chun without hesitation and blocked the sure kill attack for Xiao Chun. Naturally, his fate was self-evident. He was killed by Little Qing's attack. Lord Xiao Chun, live on, the progenitor realm expert said before he died. Facing the origin world, facing the land of creation, The experts from various universes felt that they were just objects to be used in the eyes of these great figures. Only Shao Chun and the others truly stood on the side of the world. Unlike the primogenitors and Little Qing, Shao Chun and the others had never treated the world as pawns. They had never thought of using the world to achieve any goals. Therefore, in the eyes of the martialists from various universes, Shao Chun and the others were the people they could truly rely on. This time, facing the persecution of the land of creation, only Shao Chun and the others dared to truly stand up and provide protection for them. It could be said that Shao Chun was the only person they could rely on. Therefore, when he saw Little Qing attack Shao Chun, the progenitor realm expert did not hesitate to die for Shao Chun. He was not the only one. At the same time, more and more people came in front of Shao Chun as if they were protecting Shao Chun. They protected Shao Chun firmly in the middle. These people's cultivation bases were not high. To Little Qing, they were indeed like ants. But now, they stood in front of Shao Chun without hesitation in order to protect Shao Chun. Looking at everyone's actions, Shao Chun was taken aback. At the same time, Shao Chun clearly felt that an inexplicable power was constantly gathering from everyone's bodies toward him. Not only Shao Chun, but Lin Yun, Dongfang Yun, Mo, and the others were the same. The mysterious power in everyone's bodies gradually gathered and merged into their bodies. With the appearance of this power, Shao Chun clearly felt that his strength was increasing crazily. And this power was not spiritual power. There was an obvious difference between it and spiritual power. Little Qing clearly also noticed this. She felt that Shao Chun's aura was constantly rising. Little Qing's expression sank slightly. The power of faith. She didn't expect the people of the various universes to erupt with the power of faith at this moment. The so-called power of faith was the power that erupted from the faith in one's heart. In order to reach the level of faith power, one must be sincere. Furthermore, one must deeply believe in the faith power without the slightest doubt. To put it bluntly, in the minds of these people, they had already deeply regarded Shao Chun's group as godlike existences. Otherwise, it would be impossible for them to erupt with the power of faith. And once the power of faith appeared, it was definitely a great opportunity for Shao Chun's group. It wasn't difficult to see this from the rising aura of Shao Chun's group. With the help of the power of faith, the aura of Shao Chun's group was rising crazily. She didn't expect such an unforeseen event to happen. A group of ants actually gave birth to the power of faith and even regarded Shao Chun's group as godlike existences. Damn it! In the face of such a situation, even Little Qing couldn't help but curse. The appearance of the power of faith really caught her off guard for a moment. Not only Little Qing, but the old tree, the wood spirit, the beast slave, and the others were also in a daze. The sudden appearance of the power of faith had caught everyone off guard. How is this possible? How can the power of faith appear? The old tree said in disbelief. One had to know that even Little Qing, the spirit of the world, had never received the power of faith from the beings of the world. Although the beings of the world instinctively chose to be respectful and submit to the spirit of the world, they didn't really regard Little Qing as a godlike existence from the bottom of their hearts. But now, for Shao Chun and the others, all the people in the world burst with the power of faith, which meant that Shao Chun and the others had the power of all the people in the world. With so many people, although they looked as weak as ants individually, the power of so many people added together was absolutely not to be ignored. The power was so great that it was enough to make people blush with shame. When streams gathered together, they could also form a vast ocean. Please collect monthly vote recommend. Chapter 29:39. Even Little Qing could not sit still as she watched the endless power of faith flow into the bodies of Shao Chun, Lin Yun, and the others. After all, this was the power of hundreds of billions of people. Even Little Qing could not sit still as she watched the endless power of faith flow into the bodies of Shao Chun, Lin Yun, and the others. After all, this was the power of hundreds of billions of people. These powers might seem weak individually, But what if they were all gathered in one person's body? That would be completely different. It was obvious that there would be a qualitative change. As expected, Xiao Chun and Lin Yun were the first to complete the transformation under the dense power of faith. Their auras quickly broke through the level of ancient life forms and reached the level of primogenitors. They broke through. The old tree, the patriarch of the Stone Spirit clan, and the others all said in disbelief as they watched the scene unfold. Ancient life forms could be said to be the highest level of existence. But now, Xiao Chun and Lin Yun had broken through this level and reached the level of primogenitors. Logically speaking, it was impossible for Xiao Chun and Lin Yun to break through to the level of ancient life forms. Even back then, it was because of Little Qing's help that they reached the level of ancient life forms. Without Little Qing, Xiao Chun and the others would not have been able to reach this level. But now, the two of them had broken through to the level of ancient life forms. This was the terror of the power of faith. Because the warriors of the various universes and the living beings of the universe really regarded Xiao Chun and the others as saviors, godlike existences, they erupted with the power of faith. Under the influence of the power of faith, Xiao Chun and Lin Yun completed the transformation and successfully broke through to a whole new level. The power of faith did not come from the world, but from the many living beings. It could be said that even Little Qing and the other primogenitors did not have this power. Little Qing and the other primogenitors' power came from the blessings of heaven and earth, while Xiao Chun and Lin Yun's power came from all living beings. It had nothing to do with heaven and earth. Therefore, with the breakthrough of Xiao Chun and Lin Yun, although there was a strong heavenly might in the sky, there was no heavenly punishment. The appearance of heaven's wrath meant that Xiao Chun and Lin Yun's actions had incurred the wrath of heaven and earth. They had seriously violated the rules of heaven and earth. Heaven and earth wanted to kill these two people, but there was no heaven's punishment. This meant that the rules of heaven and earth could no longer do anything to Xiao Chun and Lin Yun. After all, Xiao Chun and Lin Yun's powers were not bestowed by the heavens and earth. Therefore, even if the two of them seriously violated the rules of the heavens and earth and caused a strong threat to the heavens and earth could do nothing about it. The heavenly punishment could no longer do anything to the two of them. Little Qing's expression became more and more ugly. She had never thought that at this critical moment, the living beings of heaven and earth would erupt with the power of faith and allow Xiao Chun and Lin Yun to successfully break through. It wasn't just Xiao Chun and Lin Yun. Looking at Mo He, Dongfang Yun, and Ancestor He, they were not far from breaking through. Once they broke through to the primogenitor realm, they would definitely be a great threat to the land of creation. Little Qing couldn't help but curse inwardly. She had never thought that things would develop to this point. As for Xiao Chun and Lin Yun, as the real parties involved, they were both surprised and happy about the increase in their power. Their eyes flashed with a responsible light. To be honest, this was the first time Xiao Chun felt such power. It was very strong, ridiculously strong. Moreover, it was completely different from the power he had encountered before. It was a world of difference. However, this kind of power, after entering his body, he didn't even need to refine it. It naturally turned into his own power. It was as if he was very familiar with this power. The two were originally one and were extremely compatible with him. There was no feeling of rejection. Xiaoqin couldn't help but clench his fists in excitement. With this kind of power, Xiaoqin wouldn't be as helpless as before when he faced Little Qing. At this moment, he already possessed power that wasn't weaker than Ancestor Mu and the other primogenitors. He truly had the qualifications to protect the living beings of heaven and earth. Thinking of this, Xiaoqin also rose into the air with a calm expression. At the same time, on the other side, the few ancient creatures that were fighting Lin Yun were also sent flying by Lin Yun. Their faces were filled with shock. Lin Yun, who had been suppressed, suddenly erupted with such terrifying power. These ancient creatures didn't expect this at all. After being sent flying, Lin Yun came to Xiao Chun. The two of them stood side by side and looked at Little Qing calmly. Xiao Chun spoke first. This is the power given to me by the living beings. They need me to protect them. Therefore, I, Shao Chun, will protect this world forever. That power came from all living beings, and Shao Chun's words were like an oath to all living beings. Since he had received such great power from all living beings, then he had to use that power to protect all living beings. Since the primogenitors and the spirits of heaven and earth couldn't become the protectors of the living beings and could only treat them as chess pieces, then he would become the protector of the living beings. He would protect them from being slaughtered by others and not be slaughtered like an unending chain. As Shao Chun finished speaking, Dongfang Yun, Mo He, and Ancestor He also surpassed the limits of the ancient creatures and reached the level of primogenitors. However, their presences were clearly weaker than Shao Chun and Lin Yun. Moreover, after the three of them broke through, Shao Chun and Lin Yun's presences were still rising. Shao Chun and Lin Yun had absorbed the most power of faith. Their strength should be between the primogenitors and Little Qing. They were slightly stronger than the primogenitors, but slightly weaker than Little Qing. Faced with this outcome, Little Qing's face was extremely gloomy. A person who should have been viewed as an ant had suddenly transformed into an existence that could threaten her. All of this had happened in an instant. How could Little Qing accept this? Especially after hearing Shao Chun's words, Little Qing was even more furious. What was the meaning of this? The primogenitors hadn't been dealt with yet, and now there was another group of existences that wanted to resist her. People who wanted to transcend the control of heaven and earth. Moreover, Shao Chun and the others did indeed have the ability to do so. They had already become a huge problem for her. Damn it, Shao Chun, do you think you can become my enemy just because of this? Whether I can or not, I, Shao Chun, swear that from today onwards, I will be the protector of the living beings. Even if heaven and earth want to torture the living beings, I, Shao Chun, will not agree. If I'm unwilling, then I will fight to the death. Please add, please vote, please recommend. Chapter 2940. Shao Chun's words were like an oath that resonated between heaven and earth. After absorbing the power of all living beings, Shao Chun seemed to feel the desire of all living beings. The desire to live in peace and to live on. It was so real that Shao Chun really wanted to become the guardian of all living beings. No matter what, he wanted to protect the peace of all living beings. He would no longer allow the people to be treated like ants or tools by the spirit of the heavens and earth and the primogenitors like before. As soon as Shao Chun finished speaking, the last of the power of faith drilled into his body in a frenzy. Their strength was completely different from before. Shao Chun, Lin Yun, and the others had all reached the level of primogenitor under the infusion of the power of all living beings. Even Little Qing couldn't underestimate this level of existence, because it was indeed enough to threaten Little Qing. Little Qing stared gloomily at Shao Chun and the others and said coldly, "You want to be the guardian of all living beings? Let's see if you have the ability to do so." After saying that, a towering aura erupted from Little Qing's body, and she charged directly at Shao Chun. Seeing this, Shao Chun and the others naturally wouldn't allow themselves to be captured without putting up a fight. Shao Chun, Lin Yun, and Mo He immediately attacked and fought with Shao Qing. If it were the previous Shao Chun and the other two, they probably wouldn't have the ability to fight back against Little Qing. However, it was different now. The three of them now possessed the strength of a primogenitor. Even in front of Little Qing, they didn't show any signs of weakness. After fighting with the three of them, Little Qing realized that the three of them weren't any weaker than the primogenitors. In particular, Shao Chun and Lin Yun. If Mo He's strength was comparable to the primogenitors, then Shao Chun and Lin Yun's strength obviously surpassed the primogenitors. They surpassed the primogenitors and were comparable to Little Qing. This made Little Qing even more furious. What was this? Was this a rebellion against him, the spirit of the heavens? Little Qing didn't allow any resistance to exist. But now, after a fierce battle, Little Qing didn't have the slightest advantage against Xiao Chun and the other two. Not to mention defeating him, he didn't even have much of an advantage. As for Ancestor He, he was currently engaged in an intense battle with the ancient living beings like the old tree. Ancestor He also displayed his terrifying strength when dealing with several ancient life forms by himself. This was the power given to them by all living beings. Amidst the fierce battle, Xiao Chun did not forget to say to the others, "Continue to move." The great beings from the various universes were continuously gathering. Secondly, Xiao Chen's purpose was to move them away from this place so that they would not continue to be poisoned by the land of creation. Now that Xiao Chun truly possessed the pinnacle of power in the world, Xiao Chen's thoughts naturally changed. Since he had the strength, why would he still want to live under someone else's roof? In the past, he could only choose the land of creation because he wanted to fight against the origin world. Then, after the estrangement between him and Little Qing, Xiao Chun could only survive in the gap between the land of creation and the origin world. But now, everything was different. He had the strength to fight against the land of creation and the origin world. Since that was the case, he didn't have to worry about these things anymore. Xiao Chun wanted to give all living beings a true home. He wanted to create a new world while being chased by the land of creation and the origin world, a world formed by the will of all living beings. This was the opposite of Xiao Chen's current situation. Therefore, Xiao Chun stopped Little Qing and said to everyone, he would take everyone away from here and then choose a place to create a true world. He would be responsible for protecting the safety of this world. Whether it was the origin world or the land of creation, nothing could stop him. As long as he had the strength, he could protect what he wanted to protect. After hearing Xiao Chen's words, everyone started to take action and rushed into the spatial tunnel. Looking at this scene, although Little Qing was furious, she couldn't stop them at all. Faced with Xiao Chun, Lin Yun, and Helmut Amo, Little Qing found it difficult to break through their blockade for the time being. They could only watch helplessly as the people of the various great cosmoses left through the spatial passageway. She cursed in her heart. At the same time, the primogenitors in the Netherchild universe and the other universes naturally noticed the changes in Xiao Chun and the others. At this moment, in the Netherchild universe, outside the origin world's garrison, Ancestor Mu stood alone on the deck of the spatial spirit ship. His eyes flickered with a complicated light as he looked in the direction of Xiao Chun and Little Qing. Ancestor Mu could clearly feel that there were waves of intense battle aftereffects coming from that direction. Such battle aftereffects made even his heart palpitate. These were definitely not battle aftereffects that an ancient creature could have. It was obviously a battle between Little Qing and others. However, putting aside Little Qing as a world spirit, it wasn't strange for him to have such battle strength. What was strange was the person fighting Little Qing. Ancestor Mu, who had long noticed the transformation of Xiao Chun and the others, said faintly, "The power of living beings?" He had never thought that Xiao Chun and the others would suddenly obtain the power of living beings. It was because of the power of living beings that Xiao Chun and the others' strength had advanced by leaps and bounds and completed a qualitative change. They now had the ability to compete with Little Qing. Now, Xiao Chun and the others weren't afraid of Little Qing at all. It could even be said that they weren't afraid of the origin world. In other words, Xiao Chun and the others also had the confidence to not be afraid of the origin world. Originally, it should have been a situation of two tigers fighting each other. However, with the transformation of Xiao Chun and the others, it was slowly developing in the direction of a tripartite confrontation. The tripartite confrontation made the originally chaotic situation even more difficult to control, because no matter which side it was, they had to deal with the other two sides. Ancestor Mu, do you think the world spirits can stop them? At this moment, Chun Yin asked from the side. The battle aftereffects made even Ancestor Mu's heart palpitate, let alone an ancient creature like Chun Yin. Facing the battle aftereffects of such a level, Chun Yin couldn't even think of resisting. The gap was too big. At the same time, Chun Yin was a little panicked by such a change. Who would have thought that this world could give birth to existences that were comparable to the primogenitors and the world spirits? They relied on the power of living beings. Could the world spirits really erupt with such power? Ancestor Mu only said, faintly in response to Chun Yan's question, "A storm is coming. Everything will have to start from the beginning. Please collect, vote, recommend." Chapter 2941. Ancestor Mu sighed softly. As soon as he finished speaking, he ignored Chun Yin, who was still in a daze, and turned around to return to the cabin. Ancestor Mu sighed softly. As soon as he finished speaking, he ignored Chun Yin, who was still in a daze, and turned around to return to the cabin. Inside the cabin, Ancestor Mu sat cross-legged with his eyes closed. His spirit had already left his body. In the origin world, the primogenitors gathered in the hall. Ancestor Mu, Ancestor Qing, Ancestor Qilin, Ancestor Bai, and the others were all gathered together. The 8 primogenitors appeared together. Although they did not come in person, it was obvious that Shao Qin's matter had attracted their attention. The power of all living beings? The legend is actually true, Ancestor Qing said first. The primogenitors knew very little about the power of all living beings. They only knew that according to the legend, whoever obtained the power of all living beings would possess the strength to contend with the spirit of heaven and earth. Heaven and earth and all living beings were fundamentally equal. Although heaven and earth created all living beings, it did not mean that all living beings were slaves to heaven and earth. On the contrary, the power of all living beings could actually contend with the spirit of heaven and earth. However, since ancient times, no one had ever obtained this power. Therefore, as time passed, the world naturally forgot about this matter and thought that the power of all living beings did not exist. But now, the metamorphosis of Shao Chun and the others seemed to have broken everything before. The power of all living beings was real. Moreover, after obtaining the power of all living beings, Shao Chun and the others indeed possessed the strength to contend with the spirit of heaven and earth. The power of all living beings has appeared. What should we do now? Ancestor Bai chimed in as soon as Ancestor Qing finished his sentence. Right now, the origin world did not only need to pay attention to the place of creation, but also Shao Chun and the others. Ancestor Qiu said in a deep voice, "The battle between 2 tigers has turned into a tripartite confrontation. The situation in the future will probably become even more complicated. What do you think if we help the spirit of heaven and earth eliminate Shao Chun and the others? We can't do that. Putting aside whether or not the spirit of the world will agree to it, even if it does, with the support of the power of all living beings, we can actually kill it. Given the relationship between the primogenitors and Little Qing, the possibility of them working together was not high. Moreover, it would not be easy to kill Shao Chun and the others. This was similar to the various primogenitors. Little Qing could defeat them, but killing them wasn't as easy as saying. Therefore, the Qilin ancestor's suggestion was quickly rejected by the other progenitors. Although no one said it aloud, the primogenitors knew very well that the rise of Shao Chun and the others was unstoppable and unavoidable. Since there was no way to stop the rise of Shao Chun and the others, the most important thing to do now was to wait and see what the outcome of this battle would be. While the primogenitors were discussing the countermeasures, on the other side of the place of creation, Dongfang Yun led a group of experts to rescue Xiao Yao and Xiao Lao. Since he had completely fallen out with the land of creation, there was no way that Shao Chun would let his family stay in the land of creation again. Otherwise, if Little Qing used his family as a threat, Shao Chun would really not know how to deal with it. This should have been an extremely difficult task. Even though Dongfang Yun was an ancient life form, it was still extremely difficult to rescue people from the place of creation. However, just now, Dongfang Yun had also obtained the power of all living beings, and his cultivation base had directly broken through to the primogenital level. Dongfang Yun's skyrocketing strength made him very confident. At the same time, he sighed inwardly. Was this the power and wish of all living beings? After absorbing the power of all living beings, Dongfang Yun knew where the power came from. He also knew that it was actually the wish of all living beings. They hoped to have a guardian god to protect them, so that they would no longer be wantonly bullied and used by the experts of the world. With the power of all living beings, Dongfang Yun quickly entered the place of creation. Now, that little Qing was fighting fiercely with Xiao Chun and the others. There was no one in the place who could stop him. To put it bluntly, there was not a single ancient life form in the place of creation. It could be said that Dongfang Yun had entered a place where there was no one. Very smoothly, he found Xiao Yao, Xiao Lao, Xiao Wan, Dongfang Lin, and the others. When she saw Dongfang Yun, Dongfang Lin excitedly called out, "Mother, now is not the time to talk. Let's leave this place first." There were too many things that he did not have time to discuss with the children. Dongfang Yun led the few of them and quickly left the place of creation. They did not encounter any obstructions along the way. Even if he was obstructed, with Dongfang Yun's strength, he was able to open up a bloody path as if he was smashing rotten wood. After successfully bringing Xiao Yao, Xiao Lao, and the others out of the place of creation, Dongfang Yun flew towards the place that he had discussed with Xiao Chun in advance. Dongfang Yun's operation was very smooth. On the other side, little Qing, who was fighting fiercely with Xiao Chun, also sensed everything that happened in the place of creation. Knowing that someone had taken away Xiao Yao, Xiao Lao, and the others, little Qing looked at Xiao Chun and shouted angrily, "Xiao Chun, you sent people to the place of creation?" "Yes, I did. Since we've already broken off, how can I let my family fall into your hands?" In response, Xiao Chun did not refute, but admitted it openly. Just now, Xiao Chun also received a message from Dongfang Yun saying that it was a success, and he was greatly relieved. After obtaining the power of a primogeniture, Xiao Chun and the others naturally could not be mentioned in the same breath. For Xiao Chun and the others to communicate with each other through divine sense from thousands of miles away, it was too easy for them. Therefore, when Dongfang Yun had just left the place of creation, Xiao Chun already knew. Looking at Xiao Chun's indifferent appearance, little Qing was burning with anger. Not only because she could not take down Xiao Chun and the others, but also because Xiao Chun dared to send people to infiltrate the place of creation. "Xiao Chun, you're courting death." The only hostage that could threaten Xiao Chun was taken away. One could imagine how terrible little Qing's mood was. Xiao Chun, on the other hand, was completely unfazed by little Qing's presence. His attitude toward little Qing had completely changed now that he had become more powerful. As the two sides fought, more and more people entered the spatial tunnel. The number was estimated to have exceeded 100 billion. They were the only living beings in the world now. At this moment, under the protection of Xiao Chun and the others, they were escaping one after another. "Spirit of heaven and earth, I have obtained the power of all living beings. From now on, I will be the master of all living beings. From now on, all living beings will no longer be anyone's tool or ant, not even heaven and earth." Seeing that most of the people had left, Xiao Chun and Lin Yun jointly forced little Qing back with a punch. Then, Xiao Chun roared at the sky. "From now on, I will be the master of all living beings in this world." Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 2942. She had failed to stop Xiao Chun and even allowed Xiao Chun to teleport hundreds of billions of cultivators from various universes away right under her nose. Little Qing's expression was extremely ugly. She had failed to stop Xiao Chun and even allowed Xiao Chun to teleport hundreds of billions of cultivators from various universes away right under her nose. Little Qing's expression was extremely ugly, especially when she heard Xiao Chun's angry roar at this moment. One could imagine how little Qing felt. Originally, little Qing had planned to use these people to deal with the origin world. But now, they had all been rescued by Xiao Chun, which had completely disrupted little Qing's plan. Xiao Chun glanced coldly at little Qing and said in a deep voice, "None of these people live in the world. All living beings in this world are not anyone's tools, nor are they anyone's sacrifices. After saying that, Xiao Chun, Lin Yun, and Mo he prepared to leave. Seeing this, little Qing did not stop them. Instead, she watched them enter the spatial passage. In the end, the spatial passage slowly closed. An ancient creature said unwillingly, "Are we going to let them go just like that?" Little Qing glanced coldly at the ancient creature. Naturally, she was unwilling to let Xiao Chun and the others leave. But what could she do? Chase after them? But even if she chased after them, would she be able to stop Xiao Chun and the others? With the power of all living beings, Xiao Chun and the others were no longer the same as before. The development of the situation had seriously exceeded Little Qing's expectations. This battle had thoroughly humiliated Little Qing. Not only had she failed to take down Xiao Chun and the others, but she had even allowed Xiao Chun and the others to rescue them right under her nose. This was absolutely a great humiliation. Little Qing did not say anything. With a gloomy face, she turned around and left. Since things had developed to this point, it was useless to say anything else. It was a temporary end. On the other side, Xiao Chun and the others who had left soon met up with the cultivators from various universes. At the same time, Dongfang Yun, Xiao Yao, and Xiao Lao were also there. "Father." Seeing Xiao Chun, the two little guys immediately came up to him. Seeing this, Xiao Chun smiled and patted their heads. Seeing that they were safe and sound, Xiao Chun heaved a sigh of relief. In the endless starry sky, there was a dark mass of people. These people were the lucky survivors of the world. Their emotions and desires had not been erased, so they were still considered normal living beings. In the future, these people would be the ones that Xiao Chun would need to protect. Right now, the most important thing was to find a place to stay. Xiao Chun looked at Lin Yun, Mo He, and He Zhu. It's time to create a home that truly belongs to us. Because of the primal origin world and the land of creation, the universes in this world were in ruins. The previous order had been completely disrupted, and the various universes could be said to be riddled with holes. Therefore, Xiao Chun wanted to rush to create a world where everyone could live in peace. In response, Lin Yun and the others nodded in agreement. It was not the best choice for these people to go to any universe. It would be best to create a new world for them. Soon, Xiao Chun and the others sat together and gathered in the starry sky. Every one of them had an aura that soared into the sky. Since they already had the strength of an ancestor, creating a world was not impossible for them. Moreover, to be precise, Xiao Chun and the others did not really want to create a world. They just wanted to merge a few universes that they had their eyes on to form a new, huge universe. The Great Thousand World, the Primordial World, the Great Demon World, the Red Wind World, and other universes were all chosen by Xiao Chun and the others. By completely merging these universes, a new universe would be formed. The area would be extremely large, enough to support the lives of hundreds of billions of people. Rich power of laws surrounded Xiao Chun and the others. Under the influence of the power of laws, the Great Thousand World and the other universes that had been chosen quickly underwent tremendous changes. As if attracted by some force, the space began to distort. The ground, the sky, the mountains, and everything else collapsed inch by inch. It was as if they had been directly shattered. However, these universes began to merge together again and formed a new world. Such a big movement naturally did not escape the attention of the ancestor and Little Qing. Little Qing's face was gloomy, but she did not stop them. In Xiuzu's residence in the origin world, Hu Huang looked at Xiuzu with a puzzled expression and asked, "What are they doing?" He could feel that these universes seemed to have been destroyed by Xiao Chun and the others in an instant. However, very soon, they seemed to have been reborn and had broken out of their cocoons. Hu Huang did not understand what Xiao Chun and the others were doing. However, Xiuzu said faintly, "They want to create a new world, just like the origin world and the land of creation." Xiuzu was not shocked by Xiao Chun and the others' methods. After all, the other ancestor could also use such methods. What really made Xiuzu feel complicated was that neither the origin world nor the land of creation could stop Xiao Chun and the others. This also meant that from now on, this world would form a true tripartite balance of power. They had thought that this would be a battle between the origin world and the land of creation. However, who would have thought that the legendary power of all living beings would appear at this critical juncture? This was something that no one had expected. Everything can no longer be stopped. Now, even the ancestor and the spirit of heaven and earth did not know how things would develop in the end. Everything had gone beyond their control. No one knew where the world would go in the end. They did not know what the ancestor and little Qing were thinking. Under the mighty power of Shao Chun and the others, a new world was slowly forming. This was a brand new world formed by merging several universes. It was huge, countless times bigger than any of the universes. The mountains, rivers, and everything was as beautiful as a painting. This was the world that Shao Chun and the others had created for the sake of all living beings. Since the world could not give all living beings a place to live, Shao Chun and the others would create one for themselves. As this new world slowly took shape, a dense heavenly might came crashing down from the sky in all directions. This was the world expressing its dissatisfaction. Because Shao Chun and the others had created a new world, it was tantamount to directly challenging the dignity of the world. However, in the face of such pressure, Shao Chun, Lin Yun, Mu Lingxian, and the others did not change their expressions. Lin Yun even snorted coldly. Even if you're not happy, what can you do? Now, Shao Chun and the others were not afraid of the pressure of the world. So what if it was the world? At this moment, Shao Chun and the others only represented the living beings of the world. As for the world, Shao Chun and the others did not care about it anymore. Even if they were not happy, what could they do? Please collect, vote, recommend. Chapter 2943. The pressure of the world covered the heavens and the earth as if it wanted to crush Shao Chun and the others to death. However, it didn't take long for the pressure to vanish with a low shout from the others. The pressure of the world covered the heavens and the earth as if it wanted to crush Shao Chun and the others to death. However, it didn't take long for the pressure to vanish with a low shout from the others. Disperse. A single word was spoken softly, and the pressure in the sky was instantly dispersed. The world couldn't stop Shao Chun and the others from doing anything. After all, the energy of all living beings was in existence on the same level as the spirit of the world. After obtaining the energy of all living beings, Shao Chun and the others weren't afraid of the pressure of the world anymore. It could even be said that they'd escaped the control of the world a long time ago. As time passed, the new world slowly took form. In the end, a brand new world appeared before them. Shao Chun and the others stood up and spoke to the living beings present here. This is our new home. From today onwards, even the world can't bully us as it pleases. As soon as he spoke, the living beings instantly erupted with cheers. Since the origin world and the origin world had appeared successively, the living beings had become the tools of the world. All living beings in the world seemed to have become tools in their hands. They could only be used and could only choose to submit. They had no right to resist at all. But now, along with the growth of Shao Chun and the others, the living beings of the world finally had their own protectors. Even people as strong as the primogenitors and Little Qing couldn't bully the living beings of the world as they pleased. Brother Shao Chun, give this new world a name. After all, this is where we'll live in the future. Let's call it the world of living. The world of living was the name of the new world. Since it was established for the living beings of the world, then it was naturally the most suitable name. Lin Yun smiled and nodded when she heard that. That's right. After that, Shao Chun and the others set up a shocking restriction above the world of living and enveloped the entire place. With this restriction in place, even the primogenitors and Little Qing couldn't sneak into the world of living, and the ancient living beings couldn't even break through the restriction. Shao Chun and the others would be able to sense the slightest movement in the air. After doing all this, the living beings began to enter the land of all living beings. This was their new home. In a new home that was free from the control of the world, it could be said that the world did not have any control over it. To put it bluntly, It meant that they wouldn't have to worry about heavenly punishment in the future when they cultivated. This was because heavenly punishment and heavenly might could not descend upon the land of all living beings. Shao Chun and the others would not allow it. With so many people entering the land of all living beings, there were naturally many things that needed to be dealt with. However, Shao Chun and the others didn't need to personally deal with these matters. Naturally, the world lords of the various universes, as well as the strong ones, would be in charge. As for Shao Chun and the others, as the guardian gods of all living beings, they only needed to oversee the land of all living beings. At the center of the land of all living beings, Shao Chun and the others rewarded the palace of all living beings. Among them, Shao Chun, Lin Yun, Mu Lingxian, and Mo He, Ancestor He, and Dong Fong Yun had become the gods of all living beings and were respectfully addressed as divine ancestors. Everything was proceeding in an orderly manner. After the land of all living beings was established, the world seemed to have returned to peace in an instant. The origin world and the land of creation were unusually quiet, which was rare for them. The battles instantly stopped, and all sides maintained a relative calm. The origin world, the land of creation, and the land of all living beings stood in a tripartite balance. They seemed to balance each other, so no one dared to act rashly. Time passed slowly. In the blink of an eye, half a year had passed. The land of all living beings was gradually on the right track. The vast and boundless land of all living beings had been divided into 12 prefectures, and each prefecture had hundreds of prefectures. Each prefecture was ruled by a world lord. In half a year, many people had broken through to the world lord level. With the current strength of Shao Chun and the others, it wasn't difficult for them to help some people break through to the world lord level. New rules and order were constantly being established. In the land of all living beings, everyone's center was the palace of all living beings. Everything revolved around the palace of all living beings. Shao Chun and the other divine ancestors were currently residing in the palace of all living beings. Every family and force had a statue of Shao Chun and the others. In the hearts of all living beings, Shao Chun and the others were like gods. They had become the spiritual sustenance of countless people. The palace of all living beings was now like the origin world. In the hearts of all living beings, it was a place of yearning and longing. It was a place where the gods resided. In the palace of all living beings, Shao Chun, Lin Yun, and the others were busy dealing with the various matters of the land of all living beings. Of course, Shao Chun and Lin Yun directly handed some trivial matters to Xin Yuan Ling, Li Tian, and the others to deal with. What they really paid attention to was the rules of the land of all living beings, the establishment of rules, and the establishment of a new world. These things were indispensable. In half a year, they slowly perfected these things one by one. The land of all living beings now resembled a true world. Brother Shao Chun, we've basically finished dealing with everything. The rules of the land of all living beings are nearing completion. The land of all living beings is now an existence comparable to the origin world and the land of creation. In a small world, Lin Yun looked at Shao Chun and said with a faint smile on her face. In response, Shao Chun smiled faintly and said, "Yes, I can finally relax." Haha, I see that brother Shao Chun has lived quite comfortably in the past half a year. And Mohi laughed heartily in response. In a land of all living beings, there was no conflict between the righteous and demonic Tao. Demonic Tao cultivators, evil Tao cultivators, and righteous Tao cultivators all coexisted in this place. Although there would still be conflicts below, and there would still be competition between different forces or hostility. However, these things were nothing to Shao Chun and the others. As the guardians of all living beings, Shao Chun and the others wouldn't pay attention to these disappearances. Moreover, as long as there were people, there would definitely be competition. The competition between the various forces wasn't enough to attract the attention of Shao Chun and the others at all. What Xiao Chun and the others truly cared about was the origin world and the land of creation. As for other small matters, they would naturally be handled by their subordinates. Xiao Chun and the others were only responsible for setting the rules. As long as it was within the rules, there wouldn't be any problems. The land of all living beings was becoming more and more like a true world. Thus, Xiao Chun said with a smile when he heard Mo He's words, "Aren't all of you the same? It wasn't easy to have such a peaceful life. I see that all of you are so happy that you can't close your mouths. However, we still need to pay attention to the origin world and the land of creation. Although everything is becoming peaceful now, someone will destroy everything sooner or later. We can't lower our guard. Begging for your collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations." Chapter 2944. The creation of the land of all living beings had gone very smoothly, and neither the origin world nor the land of creation had tried to stop it. The creation of the land of all living beings had gone very smoothly, and neither the origin world nor the land of creation had tried to stop it. However, just because of this, Xiao Chun still didn't dare to be careless. After all, just because they hadn't tried to stop it didn't mean that they didn't have any other thoughts. Whether it was the origin world or the land of creation, Xiao Chun was certain that they definitely wouldn't allow the land of all living beings to continue existing. Even though they had temporarily obtained half a year of peace, it still didn't prove anything. Hearing Xiao Chun's words, everyone nodded in agreement. Now was indeed not the time to relax. However, compared to before, Xiao Chun and the others were in a much better situation now. To be honest, when they faced the land of creation of the origin world and the land of creation. At the very least, they weren't as powerless as before when facing the two colossi. Time still passed like this, day after day. Life in the land of all living beings was still very peaceful. Ordinary people naturally didn't care about the matters of the outside world because they simply couldn't come into contact with that level. Although only half a year had passed since the creation of the land of all living beings, everyone was no longer on tenterhooks under the protection of Xiao Chun and the others. As for the threat of the origin world and the land of creation, it was left to Xiao Chun and the others to deal with. After returning to his residence, Xiao Chun immediately saw Qin Shi and the others, as well as Xiao Yao and Xiao Lao. With the transformation of his strength, Xiao Chun finally had the strength to provide a stable environment for his family. They didn't have to live under someone else's roof like before. They had their own home, so Qin Shi and the others were naturally very happy. "You're back," 100 Flower Fairy said with a gentle smile when she saw Xiao Chun. Hearing this, Xiao Chun gently embraced her. "How is it? Is everything all right?" Of course, everything is fine at home. He didn't need to worry about the matters at home. Qin Shi and the others could be said to have taken care of everything in an orderly manner. Xiao Chun didn't need to worry about anything at all. At this moment, Xiao Yao was in closed-door cultivation as well, and she was preparing to break through to the ancestor realm. As Xiao Chun's eldest son, there was no need to mention Xiao Yao's cultivation talent. Coupled with the fact that he did not lack cultivation resources at all, he had broken through to the ancestor realm at a young age. After going through a series of events, whether it was Xiao Yao or Xiao Lao, both of them had matured a lot. They were already capable of taking charge. Without disturbing Xiao Yao, Xiao Chun had dinner with Qin Shi and the other girls. Although Xiao Chun didn't need to eat for a long time at his cultivation level, Xiao Chun liked the feeling of being able to eat together as a family. Therefore, whether it was necessary or not, as long as they had time, Xiao Chun and Qin Shi would prepare 3 meals a day like ordinary people. Then, the family would gather together to eat and chat, just like ordinary people. Just as everything in the land of living beings was stabilizing, Xiao Chun brought the remaining billions of living beings to the land of living beings, because little Qing didn't have any living beings. This also meant that little Qing didn't have the means to resurrect from death like she did in the origin world. After all, she didn't have any living beings under her command. Even if she had the means, little Qing couldn't cook without rice. However, little Qing clearly didn't want to give up just like that. Therefore, in the past 6 months, Little Ching had exhausted almost all the resources in the land of living beings and mastered an absolutely powerful method. She used the soil of the land of living beings to create living beings. Although they were called living beings, the things created by the soil didn't have souls at all. To put it bluntly, they didn't have intelligence. However, their combat strength was very strong, and they only obeyed Little Ching. There was no need to worry about betrayal at all. This was Little Ching's method as a spirit of the world. She had obtained ordinary living beings from the origin world and the land of living beings. As for Little Ching, because she was a step late, she didn't have many subordinates she could use, especially the low-level warriors. Little Ching had no choice but to find another way. She used her powerful method as a spirit of the world to create an army of soil. This army of soil had no soul, no intelligence, and no ability to cultivate. They only knew how to fight. This was what Little Ching needed. Seeing the army gradually take shape, the coldness in Little Ching's eyes grew stronger. After half a year of silence, it was finally time to take action. Only the beast's slave and Sure Song had complicated feelings because they knew that once Little Ching took action, her first target would obviously be the land of living beings. Destroying the land of living beings first, and then dealing with the origin world had always been Little Ching's plan. However, the beast slave and Sure Song couldn't accept becoming enemies with Xiao Chun. After obtaining the power of living beings, Xiao Chun had become an existence comparable to the primogenitors and Little Ching. However, from now on, he stood on the opposite side of the land of living beings. Seeing that the flames of war were about to erupt, the beast slave and Sure Song were extremely conflicted. In the past half a year, the beast slave and Sure Song had spent less and less time in contact with Little Ching. Most of the time, when they encountered problems, they would try their best to avoid them. They also rarely expressed their opinions. It was obvious that some cracks had appeared between the two of them and Little Ching. However, they weren't Xiao Chun and the others. They wouldn't break off their relationship with Little Ching just because of a small crack. As true ancient living beings, the beast slave and Sure Song's loyalty to Little Ching was unquestionable. However, because of many things that had happened, the two of them did have some opinions about Little Ching's actions. The spirit of the world should be ready. I guess it's about to take action, Sure Song said helplessly when they gathered together. Little Ching's preparations were complete. It wouldn't be long before she took action against the land of living beings. Hearing this, the beast slave said with a displeased face, "Why must we target the land of living beings? Isn't our enemy the origin world? Won't everything be over if we join forces with the land of living beings and defeat the origin world?" In the beast slave's opinion, joining forces with Xiao Chun and the others to deal with the origin world was the most important thing, because the relationship between Little Ching and the primogenitors couldn't be reconciled. However, it was different from Xiao Chun and the others. First of all, Xiao Chun and the others' strength didn't come from the world. That was the fundamental difference. Moreover, to be honest, there were ways to resolve the cracks in their relationship. As long as Little Ching was willing, Xiao Chun and the others probably wouldn't refuse her. If they joined forces with the land of living beings and defeated the origin world, the world would soon return to peace. At that time, Little Ching would become a true spirit of the world. Xiao Chun and the others wouldn't be able to threaten her position. However, Little Ching didn't have any intention of joining forces with the land of living beings. Not only that, but she was bent on destroying the land of living beings. Destroying the land of living beings before dealing with the origin world was Little Ching's current plan. This made the beast slave rather displeased. Please add, vote, recommend. Chapter 2945. Their true enemy was the origin world, but Little Ching wanted to deal with the land of all life first. Their true enemy was the origin world, but Little Ching wanted to deal with the land of all life first. Because of the betrayal of Xiao Chun and the others, Little Ching had been suppressing a ball of fire in her heart. However, Xiao Chun and the others didn't count as betrayal. It could only be said that different people couldn't work together. Xiao Chun and the others couldn't accept Little Qing's actions. Fundamentally speaking, there was no enmity between them. Moreover, the beast slave knew exactly what Xiao Chun and the others wanted. As long as Little Qing didn't attack the land of all life, Xiao Chun and the others would definitely agree to form an alliance with Little Qing. The land of all life was Xiao Chun's bottom line. As long as Little Qing could promise this, then everything could be negotiated. Unlike the origin world, there was no possibility of negotiation at all. There was an irreconcilable conflict between the two sides. Since they came from the same bloodline, either Little Qing would devour the primogenitors, or the primogenitors would devour Little Qing. Therefore, it was impossible for the land of creation and the origin world to exist in peace. The matter would only end when one side was destroyed. Everything was clear, but Little Qing wanted to deal with the land of all life first. It was really inconceivable. Song sighed helplessly when he heard the beast slave's complaint. All right, this matter isn't up to us to decide. But I heard that Xiao Chun and the others are developing well. I wonder what they're like. I want to go take a look. The beast slave and Song often paid attention to the land of all life. So they were happy for Xiao Chun when they knew that the land of all life was developing well. The beast slave rolled his eyes and smiled when he heard Song's words. Why don't we go seek refuge with Xiao Chun? Song's face darkened when he heard this. He already had the thought of seeking refuge with Xiao Chun. What nonsense are you talking about? We'll be in trouble if others hear this. The beast slave and Song had always been on Xiao Chun's side. They'd persuaded Little Qing more than once not to attack the land of all life. Thus, Little Qing's attitude towards the two of them gradually became distant. She even began to suspect whether the two of them were going to betray her. It could be said that in Little Qing's heart, the beast slave and Song's positions had long become incomparably awkward. At this time, if other people heard the beast slave's words, Little Qing would definitely be furious. At that time, even if the two of them were ancient living beings, they would not have a good ending. After the incident with Xiao Chun, Xiao Qing had become a little crazy. Perhaps it was because, as a spirit of heaven and earth, he had never been humiliated like this before. He had been stopped by Xiao Chun and the others, whom he regarded as ants. Furthermore, they had forcibly taken away hundreds of billions of lives right under his nose. In addition, Xiao Qing's relationship with Xiao Chun and Xiao Chun's actions made Xiao Qing feel a deep sense of betrayal. As the saying goes, the more you value something, the harder it will be to accept it. Xiao Chun and Xiao Qing were like this. Because Little Qing valued Xiao Chun from the beginning to the end, in the face of Xiao Chun's betrayal, Little Qing could not accept it in her heart, and her hatred continued to rise. At this juncture, it was obviously not a wise move for the beast slave to say such words. Hearing Song's words, the beast slave pursed his lips, but he consciously did not continue speaking. Although he really wanted to seek refuge with Xiao Chun, the beast slave also knew that it was impossible. She and Song would not betray the land of creation. At least, they would not betray it before something happened. Letting out a deep sigh, Song was also very uncomfortable in the land of creation, but what could he do? The two of them did not know that their every move had been under Little Qing's surveillance. She had long been suspicious of the two of them, so a few months ago, Little Qing had already arranged for people to secretly monitor the beast slave and Song's every move. Therefore, the beast slave's previous words were transmitted to Little Qing's ears without missing a single word. In her original residence, Little Qing sat on a chair with a gloomy expression, and a cold glint flashed in her eyes as she spoke coldly. Seek refuge with the land of all living beings? Beast slave, I didn't expect that even you would betray me. After experiencing Xiao Chun's incident, Little Qing could be said to be extremely sensitive to the word betrayal. At this moment, if anyone had the slightest hint of betrayal, they would definitely be met with Little Qing's violent rage, and there was no room for negotiation at all. The beast slave had personally said that he wanted to seek refuge with the land of all living beings, which directly touched Little Qing's bottom line. As soon as she finished speaking, Little Qing directly called the old tree, Muling, and several other ancient living beings and shouted in a deep voice, "Capture the beast slave for me." She suddenly wanted to attack the beast slave. Hearing this, the old tree, Mu Ling, and the others were stunned. What was going on? Wasn't everything fine all along? Why did the spirit of heaven and earth suddenly attack the beast slave? Seeing that the few of them were stunned on the spot, little Qing's expression became even more gloomy. "What? Didn't you hear what I said?" Mu Ling, who had a good relationship with Shi Song, stepped forward and said, "Spirit of heaven and earth, why did you suddenly attack the beast slave? She's an ancient living being, and she didn't do anything wrong, right? What? Are you questioning me? She wants to defect. Can I capture her?" Little Qing was very dissatisfied with Mu Ling's question. In the past 6 months, Little Qing's desire to control had become more and more vigorous, and she didn't allow the slightest rebuttal from her subordinates at all. As long as Little Qing said something, then her subordinates must unconditionally carry it out. Seeing that Little Qing's expression was becoming more and more unfriendly, the old tree quietly pulled back Mu Ling, who was about to speak. "We obey." Stopping Mu Ling from continuing to speak, the old tree respectfully responded, and then the few of them strode away. On the way to the beast slave's residence, Mu Ling said with some displeasure, "Why did you pull me back just now? Are you looking for death? If you said another word just now, I reckon you'll end up like the beast slave. Then what do we do now?" "Just do as you're told." Mu Ling wasn't willing to attack the beast slave, but Little Qing had already given the order. Even if she was unwilling, there was no other way. So after hearing Mu Ling's words, Mu Ling could only helplessly shake her head. The 4 ancient living beings went straight to the beast slave's residence. At this moment, the beast slave was still unaware of this. What the beast slave said just now was just a thoughtless remark. In fact, from the bottom of his heart, the beast slave had never thought of betraying the land of creation and betraying Little Qing. But who would have thought that because of his unintentional words, Xiaoqing would actually have the intention to kill him? She didn't even hesitate to send 4 ancient living beings to capture him and didn't even give him a chance to defend himself. Because of an unintentional remark, the beast slave brought about a fatal disaster for himself. Please add, please vote, please recommend. Chapter 2946. Facing the sudden arrival of Wood Spirit and the others, the beast slave didn't realize that something was wrong at first. Facing the sudden arrival of Wood Spirit and the others, the beast slave didn't realize that something was wrong at first. Instead, he smiled and said, "You guys really don't have time to visit me today." It was rare for 4 ancient creatures to visit at the same time. Moreover, among the 4 of them, the beast slave was only slightly familiar with Wood Spirit. As for the other 3, the beast slave didn't have a deep friendship with them. Hearing the beast slave's words, Wood Spirit had a complicated expression while Old Tree spoke directly. "Under the orders of Heaven and Earth Spirit, we are here to capture the beast slave." "Capture me?" Hearing this, the beast slave's expression changed immediately. "I didn't do anything, and Heaven and Earth Spirit ordered people to capture me." The beast slave was confused. However, when he looked at Old Tree and the other 3, his expression quickly turned cold as he asked in a deep voice, "Why?" He couldn't think of any reason for Heaven and Earth Spirit to capture him. After all, the beast slave hadn't done anything in the past 6 months. And to this, Old Tree's answer was, "If you have anything to say, just say it to Heaven and Earth Spirit." Compared to Wood Spirit, Old Tree was obviously more loyal to Heaven and Earth Spirit. Hence, Old Tree didn't have the slightest intention of disobeying Heaven and Earth Spirit's orders. Saying that, Old Tree and the others were ready to attack. In this regard, the beast slave was naturally unwilling to be captured without a fight. Attack. Try it if you can. Both sides attacked. Facing 4 ancient creatures at the same time, the beast slave wasn't afraid at all. Instead, he was filled with rage. To be honest, the beast slave was confused. What exactly did he do wrong for them to want to capture him for no reason? The beast's slave couldn't figure it out. There wasn't even a single crime, and they only said that they were under the orders of heaven and earth spirit. This was simply the biggest joke in the world. Until now, the beast slave still didn't realize that the reason why Little Green attacked him was because of his unintentional words. Just like this, the five of them instantly broke out into a huge battle, and the aftermath of the battle naturally spread out quickly. Beast slave, surrender. Don't be stubborn. Wood Spirit had no choice but to attack. However, Wood Spirit still hoped that the beast slave could surrender. Resisting Little Green in the land of creation wasn't a good choice. From the bottom of his heart, Wood Spirit didn't want to be enemies with the beast slave. Surrender? What did I do wrong for you to treat me like this? Humph. Beast slave, you should be clear about what you've said. Hearing this, the beast slave immediately understood. It turned out that it was because he had previously said that he would not seek refuge with Xiao Chun and the others. Because of such a sentence, Little Qing actually directly attacked him. Regarding this, the beast slave immediately laughed out loud. Haha, so that's how it is. Just because of one sentence, you want to punish me? What a joke. Putting aside whether or not the beast slave had any thoughts of betraying the land of creation, just because of one sentence, he wanted to punish himself. From this, it could be seen how petty Little Qing's tolerance was now. How could such a narrow-minded person be worthy of the title of spirit of heaven and earth? Originally, the beast slave thought that it was because of something else, but he didn't expect that it would be because of this matter. Ridiculous, extremely ridiculous. After understanding everything, the beast slave became even angrier. If it was because of other matters, then perhaps the beast slave would still be able to figure it out. However, it was because of such a non-existent matter. Just because of a little suspicion in his heart, the beast slave was going to be convicted. No matter what, the beast slave refused to accept it. Immediately, the beast slave's attacks became even more frenzied, as if he was going to fight with his life. Want to catch me? Let's see if you have the ability to do so. Beast slave, repent before you're saved. Seeing this, Old Tree and the other three no longer held back, and Wood Spirit even opened her mouth to persuade. However, the beast slave at this moment was no longer listening to what Wood Spirit was saying. The battle between the few of them quickly attracted the attention of the others, and Sure Song was the first to rush over. Seeing Old Tree and the other three besieging the beast slave, Sure Song immediately stopped them and asked in confusion, "What are you doing?" Sure Song, this has nothing to do with you. This is the order of the spirit of heaven and earth. The spirit of heaven and earth wanted to capture the beast slave. Hearing this, Sure Song was stunned. He didn't know why the spirit of heaven and earth wanted to capture the beast slave, and the beast slave didn't want to implicate Sure Song. Sure Song, this is a matter between me and them. Both Sure Song and the beast slave were very clear. Although the two of them were rather critical of Little Qing's actions recently, to be honest, the two of them had never thought of betraying the land of creation. However, Little Qing's actions, especially this time when she ordered Old Tree and the other three to capture him, really made the beast slave bitterly disappointed. He clearly didn't have any disloyalty, but he was still suspected and even wanted to capture him because of an unintentional sentence. The battle lasted for a few days, and the beast slave was really angry. However, it was 1 against 4, and the end result was obvious. The beast slave was captured. After Sure Song knew the whole story, his face turned ashen, and he personally went to find Little Qing. However, he only stayed for less than 15 minutes before he was chased out by Little Qing. As for the beast slave, he was directly sentenced to death. Because of a single sentence, Little Qing wanted to kill an ancient creature. After his persuasion failed, he returned to his residence. Sure Song's face was ashen. He never thought that Little Qing would become like this. Sure Song knew best whether the beast slave was disloyal or not, but Little Qing didn't listen to his explanation at all. Damn it! Sure Song cursed inwardly. He was extremely disappointed in Little Qing. Now that the beast slave was imprisoned, Sure Song couldn't do anything. He would be killed in a few days. After pondering alone for a night, Song finally left the land of creation quietly. No one knew where he went. A day later, Song appeared at the entrance of the land of all living beings. As soon as he appeared, Xinyuan Ling's figure appeared at the same time. Xiao Chun and the others naturally wouldn't let down their guard against the land of all living beings. Therefore, as soon as Song appeared, Xiao Chun and the others felt it. Song. Seeing Song, Xinyuan Ling said with some confusion, "Brother Xinyuan, why are you not in the land of creation? What are you doing here?" "Sai, it's a long story, but I want to see Xiao Chun. Can I?" "Don't worry, I came alone." Song wanted to see Xiao Chun. Regarding this, Xinyuan Ling was silent for a moment, then nodded in agreement. Although Song was an ancient creature, he was no longer a threat to the current Xiao Chun. There was no problem for him to come alone and see Xiao Chun. Moreover, even if they had completely broken off with the land of creation, Xiao Chun and the others had always treated the beast slave and Song as their friends. Please add, please vote, please recommend. The error-free chapters of Sword Master Vast Expanse will continue to be updated in the bar. There are no advertisements on the website. Please add and recommend the bar. If you like Sword Master Vast Expanse, please add. Sword Master Vast Expanse bar updates the fastest. Chapter 29:47. Please. Xinyuan Ling made a gesture and personally invited Song in. The two of them entered the land of living beings together. Song really found it hard to imagine that the world before him was actually a world that had only been created half a year ago. The spirit energy was dense, and the laws were complete. Although it couldn't compare to the land of creation or the origin world, it absolutely surpassed any other universe. Of course, the numerous universes in the world were basically useless now. Space had collapsed, and the laws had withered. In the entire world, there were only 3 places where people could still live: the land of living beings, the origin world, and the land of creation. Compared to the origin world and the land of creation, the number of living beings living in the land of living beings was definitely the highest. They were weak, and even after the land of living beings was successfully created, they didn't have the ability to leave the world. After all, the land of living beings was just too large for them. Just a single continent was something they would never be able to cover in their entire lives. Therefore, in just half a year, many people had already forgotten about the conflicts in the outside world, and only the land of living beings remained in their eyes. It could be said that Xiao Chun had really done what he said. He had indeed created a safe place for all living beings in the world to shelter them from the wind and rain. It made them forget everything in the outside world. As for the threats of the origin world and the land of creation, Xiao Chun and the other divine ancestors were naturally in charge of dealing with them. They went all the way to the sacred land at the center of the land of living beings. This was where Xiao Chun and the other divine ancestors resided. In the land of living beings, it had become a place where the gods resided. Moreover, Xiao Chun and the others weren't willing to disturb the living beings in the land of living beings. Therefore, they had set up layers of restrictions around the sacred land. No one could approach it at all. Under Xinyuan Ling's lead, Song naturally entered the sacred land without a hitch, and he met Xiao Chun in a small world. He was chatting with Qin Shiru and the others. When they saw Song walk over, Qin Shiru and the others stood up and bowed. Xiao Chun also smiled. "Senior Song, I can't afford to be called senior now," replied Song with a smile. Song replied with a smile. He was indeed not worthy of being addressed as senior by Xiao Chun. Right now, Xiao Chun was someone who could stand shoulder to shoulder with the primogenitors and the spirits of the world. He was not someone an ancient life form like him could compare to. However, Xiao Chun did not care about this. The way he saw it, Song was his friend. That was enough. Xiao Chun asked with a smile after inviting Song to take a seat, and the two of them chatted for a while. "Why are you here all of a sudden? If the spirit of heaven and earth finds out, it won't be a good thing." Given the relationship between the two of them, if little Qing were to find out that Song had personally come to see her, she would definitely fly into a rage. In the face of Xiao Chen's inquiry, Song did not hide anything and immediately told Xiao Chen the whole story. Sigh, the heaven and earth spirits are completely different from before. I have no choice. The main purpose of Song's visit was to hope that Xiao Chen could save the beast slave's life. In this world, Song really didn't know who to turn to. Only Xiao Chen had the ability to save the beast slave from Little Qing's hands. As for the primogenitors, Song didn't think about them at all. They wouldn't intervene, and even if they did, it wouldn't be for the sake of saving the beast slave. After hearing about the beast slave, Xiao Chen was taken aback. He didn't expect Little Qing to capture the beast slave and sentence him to death in a few days. In Xiao Chen's impression, even though he and Little Qing had parted ways due to their different ideologies, Little Qing shouldn't be so unwise as a spirit of heaven and earth. Wasn't it a little too exaggerated to kill the beast slave just because of his unintentional words? Just as Song had said, Little Qing was now completely different from before. I didn't expect her to become like this. Xiao Chen knitted his brows and murmured softly, Xiao Chen, if you don't intervene, the beast slave will be finished. On account of our previous friendship, please save the beast slave. Song pleaded sincerely. Looking at the situation, Xiao Chen put up a stern expression. Don't worry. Even if you don't say it, I won't stand by and do nothing. I've been friends with the beast slave for so many years. How can I not help when a friend is in trouble? Without any hesitation, Xiao Chen agreed immediately. The beast slave was the closest to Xiao Chen among the ancient creatures. As for his friend, Xiao Chen definitely wouldn't leave him in the lurch. Third brother, in order to save the beast slave, you'll have to fight with the heaven and earth spirits. At this juncture, I'm afraid, Xin Yuanling reminded timely. Of course, Xin Yuanling transmitted his voice and didn't let Song hear it. In Xin Yuanling's opinion, it wasn't a good thing to have a conflict with the land of creation over a beast slave. The land of living beings just had a problem, so it wasn't a good time to do so. Moreover, this time, there were no benefits for the land of living beings. It was just to save one person. Xin Yuanling was considering the overall situation. If there were no benefits, it would naturally mean that there were no benefits. But in this regard, Xiao Chen replied straightforwardly. If I have to pay attention to this for everything, I'm afraid I'm no different from those old guys in the origin world. Xiao Chen had already made up his mind, and no one could change his mind. He turned to look at Song. Song, stay with me for the time being. Don't worry about the beast slave. I won't sit by and do nothing. Thank you. But the puppet I left in the land of living beings can only last for 3 days. After 3 days, the heaven and earth spirits will definitely know that I left. By then, it will be troublesome to save the beast slave. Okay, I got it. After saying that, Xiao Chen left in a hurry. Since he was going to make a move and become enemies with the land of living beings, he definitely had to inform Lin Yun and the others in advance. After all, the land of living beings wasn't his problem alone. If he really made a move, Lin Yun and the others would definitely know. With a thought, he told Lin Yun and the others to come to the hall to discuss something. Soon, Lin Yun and the others came to the hall one after another. When they saw Xiao Chen arrive first, Lin Yun asked with a smile, "What's wrong? Why did you call us here in such a hurry?" "Yeah, there hasn't been anything unusual in the outside world recently." They didn't know why Xiao Chen had called them here. After everyone arrived, Xiao Chen spoke. "The beast slave has been captured and will be executed in the next few days. I want to save her." He didn't beat around the bush and went straight to the point. When they heard that, Lin Yun and the others' expressions quickly became serious. Xiao Chen wanted to save someone. It wasn't a big problem, but the key was that he wanted to save someone from Little Qing. Yeah, be careful. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 2948. Currently, the land of all living beings, the origin world, and the land of creation were in a three-way stalemate. No one dared to act rashly. This was also the reason why the three sides had stabilized over the past half a year. There had been no conflict, and no one had chosen to attack, because a slight move could affect the whole situation. You had no idea how things would develop once you attacked. Moreover, unlike the previous situation, you're facing more than one enemy now. Previously, when the origin world and the land of creation were fighting, both sides only needed to think about how to defeat the other side. But now, when you were fighting one side, you had to divert your attention to guard against a third-party sneak attack. Moreover, once the casualties were too great, it was very likely that you would benefit the other side for no reason. In a three-way stalemate, there were many things to consider. Therefore, when they heard that Xiao Chun wanted to rescue the bee slave, Lin Yun and the others fell in a deep thought. On one hand, they were shocked because of the bee slave. After all, the bee slave was an ancient creature. How could little Qing kill it just like that? This was completely different from the little Qing they knew. Secondly, it was the feasibility of the rescue operation. It was not easy to rescue someone from little Qing's hands. Moreover, it was very likely that a battle would break out. When the time came, no one could say for sure how things would develop. Xiao Chun did not rush them. Instead, he waited patiently for their answer. Even if Lin Yun and the others did not agree, Xiao Chun would still take action. At most, he would go alone, with his current strength. Although he was not little Qing's match in a one-on-one battle, it should not be a problem for him to rescue the beast slave. After a moment of silence, Lin Yun finally said, "Even if we don't agree, you will still do it yourself, right?" "That's right." Lin Yun smiled when he heard that. He then shook his head helplessly. "I knew it, but I have no reason to object. After all, we were acquainted with the bee slaves. We can't just stand by and watch when a friend is in trouble." Although saving the beast slave was dangerous and there were too many uncertainties, Lin Yun still chose to save the beast slave. Following Lin Yun's statement, Mu Lingxian and the others nodded and smiled. No one denied Xiao Chen's decision. Although everyone was now the divine ancestor of the land of all living beings, there had never been a time when everyone was so united. Perhaps because they had experienced it before, Xiao Chun, Lin Yun, and the others were now very close to each other. They were extremely united. After deciding to rescue the bee slave, after discussion, they decided to sneak into the land of creation. It would be best if they could safely rescue her. However, if something unexpected were to happen, or if little Qing were to discover them, in that case, they had no choice but to fight. When the time came, Mu Lingxian and the others would come to their aid in time and cover Xiao Chen's escape. Brother Lin Yun greeted Song when he saw Lin Yun. "Senior Song, we've decided to head to the land of creation immediately. However, Senior Song, I don't think it's better for you to stay in the land of all living beings." Song's situation wasn't much better than the beast slave. Since little Qing could kill the beast slave, she could naturally kill him as well. Therefore, Xiao Chun believed that Song couldn't return to the land of creation now, so it was better for him to stay in the land of all living beings and join them. Song didn't refuse. Clearly, he considered this point and immediately smiled. "That was my original plan. But don't you need me to go with you if you want to save the beast slave?" Song had originally planned to leave the land of creation, because little Qing's actions had indeed chilled his heart. The world spirit of the past was gone. The current little Qing was completely different from before. Her personality had become suspicious and tyrannical. Moreover, she didn't have the slightest tolerance for others. Many times, as long as someone refuted little Qing's decisions, it was very likely that they would be punished. Moreover, the laws of the world had completely changed. The authority of the world spirit seemed to have been seriously challenged. The reason was the existence of the origin world and the land of all living beings. The world seemed to be the ruler of everything no longer, and all living beings had erupted with the strength to resist the world. So, Song had made his decision before he came here. However, Xiao Chun and Lin Yun smiled and refused Song's intention to follow them to the land of creation. "Senior Song, there's no need to go. Lin Yun and I can go. It'll be disadvantageous to the operation if there are too many people." Even though Song possessed the cultivation of an ancient life form, It wouldn't be good for him to go with them when it came to the rescue. After all, it was very difficult for him to hide from Little Qing's perception with his cultivation. However, Xiao Chun and Lin Yun were different. It wasn't difficult for them to hide from Little Qing's perception with their strength. So long as they didn't take the initiative to attack, Xiao Chun and Lin Yun had plenty of methods to secretly sneak into the land of creation. Of course, if they encountered obstruction and a battle occurred, then it would be a different story. Song also understood the meaning of Xiao Chen's words, so he didn't force them and readily agreed. However, he reminded Xiao Chun and Lin Yun to be careful. Xiao Chun and Lin Yun were going to sneak into the land of creation to rescue someone. Qin Shu, Lu Bingning, and the other women were naturally worried. However, they only reminded the two of them to be careful, so they didn't stop them too much. Time was tight. They had to rescue the bee slaves before Little Qing discovered the land of creation that Song had created. Therefore, Xiao Chun and Lin Yun departed from the land of all living beings on the same day. With their current strength, their speed was much faster than the spatial spirit boat. Therefore, they didn't ride the spatial spirit boat. Instead, they directly stepped into the void and disappeared. In merely 2 hours, the two of them arrived outside the land of creation. They weren't unfamiliar with the land of creation. They knew how to enter the land of creation, but they didn't enter directly from the entrance. Instead, they directly tore apart the restrictions around the land of creation and entered. The land of creation was surrounded by restrictions. Even ancient creatures couldn't break them. However, this wasn't a problem for Xiao Chun and Lin Yun. After entering the land of creation smoothly, Xiao Chun looked at Lin Yun and said, "The bee slaves have been imprisoned. Let's go directly to the prison." Xiao Chun and Lin Yun did not want to cause any unnecessary trouble, so they went straight to the prison to rescue the bee slave and successfully evacuate. Their mission would be considered complete. As for what Little Qing discovered in the end, it wasn't a problem that they should consider now. In any case, they definitely had to save the bee slaves. Even if Little Qing was furious because of this, it didn't matter. Please add, please vote, please recommend. Chapter 2949. They went straight to the prison. Along the way, Xiao Chun and Lin Yun concealed their auras. They went straight to the prison. Along the way, Xiao Chun and Lin Yun concealed their auras. With their cultivation strength, even ancient creatures would not be able to detect them. Little Qing would not be able to sense them unless it deliberately searched for them. However, when the two entered the land of creation, they did not alarm anyone. Little Qing could not possibly know that the two of them were in the land of creation at this time. Along the way, they avoided many creatures in the land of creation. As they had lived in the land of creation before, Xiao Chun and Lin Yun knew the land of creation very well. This also made the two of them more at ease. They knew where the danger was and could avoid it in advance. They arrived at the prison without a hitch. However, it was obvious that there were guards here, and Xiao Chun and Yi Futian needed to get rid of these guards without using any spiritual power. Once they used spiritual power, even if it was only a trace, it might be detected by Little Qing. They did not have any hopes of getting lucky. As a spirit of heaven and earth, Little Qing's divine sense definitely enveloped the entire land of creation at all times. Any rustling of leaves in the wind could not escape Little Qing's senses at all. "Let's make some preparations first," she whispered to Xiao Chun. Hearing this, Xiao Chun nodded. Then the two of them took action together and directly confined and separated the entire space that covered the prison. They did this to hide it from Little Qing. After directly separating the space, even if Little Qing's divine sense scanned it, it would not detect the slightest abnormality. Of course, this was only for a short period of time. To put it bluntly, it was similar to a trick. However, it was necessary to do this. If not, when Xiao Chun and Lin Yun had just rescued the bee slave, it was very likely that they would be discovered by Little Qing. However, after separating the space in advance, even if Xiao Chun and Lin Yun had rescued the bee slave, Little Qing would not discover it immediately. At least, they could hide it for a period of time. And this period of time was enough for Xiao Chun and Lin Yun to leave with the beast's slave. That was enough. As long as they could successfully leave the place of creation, this operation would be considered a success. However, even though they were prepared in advance, Xiao Chun and Lin Yun still couldn't use their spiritual power. Otherwise, their auras would still leak out. However, even if they didn't use their spiritual energy, it wouldn't be a problem. With their physical strength, Xiao Chun and Xiao Chun could easily take care of the guard around them. First, they started from the outermost area. Many creatures from the land of creation were responsible for guarding the prison, while Xiao Chun and Lin Yun were secretly cleaning up. His figure flashed and arrived behind a member of the fire spirit race. And then he struck the back of the fire spirit race member's neck and immediately knocked the fire spirit race member out. After dealing with one, Xiao Chen's figure flashed, and he instantly disappeared from where he stood. He continued on to the next target. In less than the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, the guards outside were completely wiped out by the two of them. Now, only the guards in the prison were left. However, once they entered the prison, the space became narrow, and it wouldn't be so easy to launch a sneak attack again. Therefore, Xiao Chun and Lin Yun directly planned to attack and take care of the guards in the prison as soon as possible. They dared to take care of them in one fell swoop before they could spread the news. They looked at each other and nodded slightly. The two of them moved at the same time. They turned into two black shadows and rushed into the prison in an instant. At this time, at the entrance of the prison, guards were gathered together and chatting idly. However, without any warning, Xiao Chun and Lin Yun appeared instantly. The four of them were all shocked, but before they had time to react, Xiao Chun and Lin Yun directly attacked and immediately knocked the four of them to the ground. It was unknown whether they were dead or alive. After taking care of the guards at the entrance, Xiao Chun and Lin Yun didn't stop and continued to rush into the depths of the prison. Wherever they passed, the guards didn't have any chance to react at all and were directly killed. A faint smell of blood gradually spread in the prison, and the beast slave, who was in the deepest part of the prison, had her head lowered. Her hair was disheveled, but she slowly raised her head. Her eyes were lifeless, but there was a hint of doubt in them. She smelled a faint smell of blood. This was the prison of the land of creation. Why was there a smell of blood? Could it be that someone was attacking the prison? She shook her head in self-mockery and felt that she was thinking too much. What was this place? It was the land of creation. Who would dare to attack the prison? When she thought that she had actually become a prisoner because of sentence, the beast slave's heart was like dead ashes. She had never thought that she would fall into such a plight one day. As an ancient creature, she was actually killed by little Qing just like that. Moreover, the reason was so groundless, and she didn't even have the slightest chance to defend herself. In fact, ever since she had been captured, the beast slave hadn't even seen little Qing once. It was almost as if little Qing didn't even want to listen to her explanation. Her heart was like dead ashes. Perhaps it wasn't so bad to die like this. Just as the beast slave was thinking this, two figures suddenly appeared outside her cell. She looked up and saw Xiao Chun and Lin Yun standing in front of her with smiles on their faces. You? What? Is it that strange to see us? Why are you here? To get you out of here, of course. As she replied with a smile, she undid the seal around the beast slave and restored her cultivation base. The beast slave looked at Xiao Chun in shock. She had never imagined that Xiao Chun would appear here. Her mind was blank, and she asked almost instinctively, "How did you know?" The beast slave was very confused. How did Xiao Chun and Lin Yun know about her? Song came looking for us. He's already in the land of living beings. All right, there's no need to think about it. You probably won't be able to stay in the land of creation any longer. Come back with us. I'm sure the land of living beings will be much more comfortable than the land of creation. Okay. The beast slave looked deeply at Xiao Chun, then nodded without much hesitation. She didn't want to stay in the land of creation to begin with. After this incident, the beast slave's heart toward little Qing was like dead ashes. Her loyalty to little Qing had long since been shattered. Therefore, In the face of Xiao Chen's invitation, the beast slave agreed without much thought. She smiled and nodded. Then the three of them left the cell. By now, Xiao Chun and Lin Yun had taken care of all the guards in the cell. They rushed out without incident and disappeared into the void. The simplest step had been successful. Next was to leave the land of creation. As long as they left the land of creation, even Xiao Chun wouldn't be able to do anything to them. After all, if little Qing wanted to stop Xiao Chun and Lin Yun, it wouldn't be that easy. Moreover, it seemed that little Qing hadn't noticed anything amiss. Otherwise, she would have made a move long ago. So far, everything had been going smoothly, just as he had expected. Please add me to your collection. Please recommend me. Chapter 2950. The three of them escaped from the place of creation. With Xiao Chun and Lin Yun escorting them, everything went smoothly. The three of them escaped from the place of creation. With Xiao Chun and Lin Yun escorting them, everything went smoothly. Many experts in the place of creation sensed something. Xiao Chun and the other two only heaved a sigh of relief when they successfully left the place of creation. All right, we shouldn't stay here any longer. Let's leave as soon as possible. However, Lin Yun still spoke cautiously. Although they had successfully left the place of creation, the spatial restriction of the two wouldn't last long. Once the spatial restriction of the prison was broken, little Qing would definitely be able to detect the problem immediately. By then, it would be difficult to attack. In this regard, Xiao Chun didn't have any objections. Because the beast slave was injured, the two of them left with the beast slave directly. Their figures flashed and instantly disappeared from the spot. At the same time, after Xiao Chun and the other two left, a full 15 minutes had passed before the spatial restriction of the prison slowly dissipated. And it was at this time that little Qing finally felt that something was wrong. With a thought, she instantly appeared outside the prison. Looking at the people around the prison, little Qing's expression was extremely cold. Xiao Chun and Lin Yun's auras were still floating in the air. Little Qing was naturally no exception to these two auras. Damn it, she cursed angrily. It was Xiao Chun and Lin Yun again. Moreover, the two of them had rescued the beast slave. Without even entering the prison, little Qing knew that the beast slave had been rescued by the two of them. This made little Qing very angry. This was the place of creation, her base camp. However, the other party had entered without anyone noticing, and no one had noticed anything wrong. What was this? Was this a blatant provocation? A terrifying aura instantly swept across the sky. Then the old tree, the wood spirit, the stone spirit clan leader, and other experts from the place of creation rushed over. Seeing the ashen little Qing and the countless corpses lying around the prison, everyone was stunned. The old tree even had an ominous premonition. Good, very good. They have already fought their way into your home, but you actually didn't notice at all. Little Qing was practically gnashing her teeth as she spoke. The old tree and the others could only lower their heads submissively and remain silent. It was obvious that little Qing was on the verge of exploding at this moment. She swept her gaze over everyone and shouted coldly, "What are you still standing there for? Quickly go and see if that fellow, Shi Song, is still in the origin world." Since Xiao Chun and Lin Yun had personally rescued the beast slave, where did the two of them get the news? The first person that came to little Qing's mind was Shi Song. Other than Shi Song, who else would do such a thing? With that, the old tree and the patriarch of the Stone Spirit clan immediately made their way to Shi Song's residence. However, their faces completely darkened when they arrived there to take a look. Shi Song's aura came from this puppet. Their faces darkened. When they thought about little Qing's rage, the old tree and the Stone Spirit clan's patriarch shook their heads and smiled bitterly. However, they did not dare to delay any longer. They grabbed the puppet that Shi Song had left behind and returned to little Qing's residence. Seeing the two of them return with a puppet, little Qing, who was seated on the main seat, understood everything before the two of them could say anything. Her face, which was already burning with rage, became even more gloomy as she said coldly, "A living person disappeared just like that. Moreover, it has been so many days. Didn't any of you notice at all?" Her words were obviously filled with blame. Everyone did not know how to answer her and could only choose to remain silent. Little Ching paused for a moment when she saw everyone lowering their heads in silence. Then, she waved her hand and said unhappily, "All of you get lost." After ordering everyone to leave, Little Ching's expression became even more unsightly. At the same time, her hatred for Xiao Chun and the others grew even more intense. Xiao Chun and the others had been stopping her from the beginning. This time, they even dared to enter the land of creation to save someone. They did not take her seriously at all. She was already planning to attack the land of living beings. Since Xiao Chun and the others did not know what was good for them, they could not blame her. While Little Ching was burning with rage, Xiao Chun, Lin Yun, and the beast slave quickly returned to the land of living beings. With Xiao Chun and Lin Yun leading the way, their speed was naturally very fast. In just a little over 2 hours, they arrived at the land of living beings. When they arrived at the land of living beings, the beast slave's expression was the same as Sure Song's. They were both shocked. The land of living beings that had only been established for half a year had actually developed to this extent. "How did you do it?" they asked in disbelief. We didn't do it. It's the result of everyone's efforts." Hearing this, Xiao Chun laughed heartily. The land of living beings was able to develop so quickly not because of Xiao Chun and the others, but because of the efforts of all living beings in the world. Everyone understood that the land of living beings was their home. Therefore, everyone could be said to be united in the construction of the land of living beings. It could even be said that Xiao Chun and the others had only established the land of living beings. As for other things, they really did not do much. The beast slave was shocked. At the same time, looking at Xiao Chun on the side, all sorts of feelings welled up in his heart. When he first saw Xiao Chun was still as weak as an ant in his eyes. However, in just a short period of time, Xiao Chun had already reached such a level. He had far surpassed him, and was even able to contend with the spirits of the world. Even now, when he thought about this series of changes, it was like a dream. Soon, they returned to the Temple of All Saints. The beast slave saw Sure Song, who had been waiting there for a long time. Seeing that the beast slave was safe and sound, Sure Song was relieved. At the same time, Qin Shu, Lu Bingning, and the others heard the news and quickly rushed over. Xiao Chun and the others went to rescue the beast slave, which indeed made the girls very worried. They succeeded? Isn't it obvious? Yes, but we might have to be careful of the land of living beings. Mu Lingxian, Mo He, and the others also arrived. After asking about the rescue process and learning that everything went smoothly, they all breathed a sigh of relief and began to be on guard. This time, they rescued the beast slave right under Little Ching's nose. According to Little Ching's current personality, it probably would not let this matter rest. However, they did not know what Little Ching would do, but the necessary precautions must be taken. Perhaps Little Ching would directly attack. This was something that no one could guarantee. In response, Xiao Chun and Lin Yun both nodded in agreement. Please add this to your collection. Monthly vote. Recommend this. Chapter 29:51. Successfully producing a beast slave was indeed something to be happy about. However, the necessary precautions couldn't be ignored. Successfully producing a beast slave was indeed something to be happy about. However, the necessary precautions couldn't be ignored. After suffering such a huge loss, in addition to Little Ching's unpredictable personality, who knew what he would do, therefore, they had to pay attention to Mu Lingxian and the others' warning. Xiao Chun and Lin Yun were very clear about this. Yes, that's right. Besides Little Ching, we can't lower our guard against those old fellows from the origin world. Yes, although those old fellows haven't done anything in the past half a year, who knows what they're doing in the dark? Yes, they had to be on guard against the origin world and the land of creation. Neither side was easy to deal with. Little Qing's threat wasn't small, but the threat of the primogenitors couldn't be ignored. After a simple conversation, they arranged for people to be on guard against the movements of the origin world and the land of creation. They arranged for the beast slave and sure song to live together. From now on, the two of them could be considered as members of the land of creation. The beast slave had to recuperate for a while because of his injuries. When they returned to their residence and sat down in the courtyard, Xiao Chen saw Xiao Lao running over happily. Seeing this, Xiao Chen scolded him with a smile. "You're playing around again? Your brother is in seclusion. What about you? You don't even know how to cultivate." "Dad, big brother's in seclusion because he's about to break through. I haven't reached the time yet. Naturally, I don't need to be in seclusion. Little brat, cultivate properly. Otherwise, I'll beat you up." Xiao Chen naturally doted on the two boys, Xiao Yao and Xiao Lao, especially Xiao Lao. He had been mischievous since he was young and had caused Xiao Chen a lot of trouble. Compared to the smart and sensible Xiao Yao, Xiao Lao was indeed more troublesome. However, the two brothers were very talented in cultivation, especially Xiao Lao. Although he was the younger brother, his cultivation was higher than Xiao Yao's. Xiao Yao was still in seclusion to break through to the ancestor realm, but Xiao Lao had already broken through to the ancestor realm. Qin Shiru and the other girls smiled when they saw how close the father and son were. Flower Fairy even turned her head and teased Guling Yao, Tian Yue, and Hong Xiao. "My three younger sisters, you have to hurry as well. Father and mother asked me a few days ago." Right now, Xiao Chun only had two sons and one daughter. Guling Yao, Tian Yue, and Hong Xiao didn't have any children yet. Xiao Chun didn't care much about this matter. After all, there were too many things that Xiao Chun had to deal with. It was hard for him to take care of these things. However, as parents, Xiao Qing and Bai Riyue didn't think the same way. Guling Yao and the other two didn't have a child for a long time, and this had become a huge matter in their hearts. As elders, the two elders naturally hoped to have a house full of children and grandchildren. Moreover, Xiao Yao and the other two had already grown up. To be honest, they didn't have much time to accompany the two elders. Therefore, the two elders also hoped that Guling Yao and the other two could have their own children soon. Hearing Flower Fairy's words, the three girls blushed. Qin Shiru even teased them, which was rare. "From today onwards, our husband will let you have him. Little sister Bai Hua and I will take the initiative to withdraw. How about it?" "Sister Shui Ro, what are you talking about?" Even the eccentric Gu Lingyao blushed and acted coquettishly when she heard this. Smiling, the five girls quickly sat down on either side of Xiao Chun. However, Gu Lingyao and the other two girls blushed while Flower Fairy gently massaged Xiao Chen's shoulders. There was a faint smile at the corner of his mouth. "Husband, Yao is in seclusion. Lao is fine as well. However, Luan Luan has been having some problems recently." What's wrong with Luan Luan?" Hearing this, Xiao Chun asked curiously. Speaking of which, it seemed that he hadn't seen Luan Luan for a very long time. Hearing this, Xiao Lao, who was at the side, immediately said, I know. What do you know, kid? Let me hear it." "Hee, big sister has someone she likes. Recently, they have been spending all their time together. They even went to many places to play." Facing Xiao Chen's question, Xiao Lao said proudly. Hearing this, Xiao Chun was stunned. Xiao Wan has someone she likes? Why didn't he know about this? He looked at Qin Shiru and the other girls in confusion. Seeing this, Qin Shiru scolded with a smile. "Who can you blame? It's all because you have too many things to do and don't pay attention to the children." "That's true. Tell me, who is the other party?" In fact, Xiao Wan had reached the age of marriage, but if the man was not good enough, Xiao Chen wouldn't agree. Although Xiao Wan wasn't his biological daughter, after so many years, Xiao Chen had long regarded her as his own daughter. Even after Xiao Yao and Xiao Lao were born, Xiao Chen's love for Xiao Wan didn't decrease. After all, a daughter was naturally more heartwarming than a son. Seeing Xiao Chen's curious and somewhat nervous expression, Qin Shiru and the other girls couldn't help but smile. The dignified divine ancestor was surprisingly nervous. Perhaps this was the only thing that could make Xiao Chun show such an expression. Speaking of which, you know that person. It's Lin Yun's only son, Lin Feng. Qin Shi didn't beat around the bush and directly told Xiao Chun. Hearing that it was Lin Feng, Xiao Chun was stunned. Although Xiao Chun didn't have much contact with Lin Feng, he still knew him. This boy was indeed good. He was talented and had a good character. In addition, his father was Lin Yun, who was on good terms with his family. For Xiao Wan, he was indeed a good match. Haha, so, it's this stinky boy. Xiao Chun laughed heartily. He didn't have any doubts about Lin Feng. If the two were really in love, Xiao Chun would certainly not object. However, Lin Yun wanted his precious daughter to be his daughter-in-law. He wouldn't let him get it so easily. No, I have to go to Lin Yun's place tomorrow. My daughter can't marry him so carelessly. Among the crowd, Xiao Chun and Lin Yun's relationship was the best. Naturally, he didn't have any misgivings when he spoke. A few days ago, Bing Ning and Qing Zhu came in person, saying that they wanted to discuss the date of the engagement and settle the matter of the two boys as soon as possible. So soon? Soon? You really don't care about anything. Wan has already come to discuss this matter with us, and so has Lin Feng. How come I didn't know about it at all? You don't know anymore. Xiao Wan and Lin Feng had already reached the point of discussing the marriage. Xiao Chun was surprised when he heard that. He didn't expect that his precious daughter would be getting married in the blink of an eye. He didn't know what to feel in his heart. He was happy, excited, and gratified, but more than that, he seemed to be reluctant. When he thought that his daughter, who had always been by his side, was about to get married, Xiao Chun felt a little uncomfortable in his heart, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 2952. Xiao Wan's matter really surprised Xiao Chun, because he didn't hear any news at all. Xiao Wan's matter really surprised Xiao Chun, because he didn't hear any news at all. The next morning, Xiao Chun couldn't help looking for Lin Yun. Seeing Xiao Chun looking for her so early in the morning, Lin Yun asked curiously, "Looking for me so early in the morning? Is there something else?" "There must be something, and it's a big matter." "Oh, tell me about it." Xiao Chen's words quickly aroused Lin Yun's interest. What big matter could make Xiao Chun come to her so early in the morning? While the two were talking, Lu Bingning, Qing Zhu, and other Lin Yun's wives also came over. Looking at Xiao Chen's complicated expression, the women covered their mouths and chuckled. Like Xiao Chun, Lin Yun didn't know about this matter. After all, the two were too busy recently, so they naturally neglected these things. She looked at Xiao Chun doubtfully. Seeing this, Xiao Chun said angrily, "It seems that you don't know anything either. Where's your son now?" "Feng, what's wrong? Did this kid annoy you? You're so old, and you still want to argue with a child?" "Nonsense. If I don't argue, I'm afraid my daughter will be abducted." And the more she talked, the more confused she became. In the end, Lu Bingning and the other women came forward and told Lin Yun the truth. Hearing that Lin Feng was actually with Xiao Chen's daughter, Xiao Wan, Lin Yun was stunned at first, then she laughed loudly. Good Feng, did a good job. You found me a good daughter-in-law." Saying this, Lin Yun also looked at Xiao Chun provocatively. In this regard, Xiao Chun curled his lips and ignored this arrogant guy. However, how could Lin Yun, who was in a good mood, let go of Xiao Chun so easily? She put her arm around Xiao Chen's shoulder and said with a smile, Brother Xiao Chun, this is a good thing. Our families will be even closer." "Stop. I haven't agreed yet. Don't be happy too early." The more Lin Yun acted like this, the more unhappy Xiao Chun was in his heart. The daughter that he raised for so many years became someone else's daughter-in-law. All of a sudden, this feeling was really uncomfortable. Lin Yun didn't care about this at all. Lu Bing and the other women on the side also covered their mouths and chuckles, without any intention to interrupt. "In-law, what do you think would be better for our wedding?" Xiao Chun. Seeing this, Lin Yun couldn't help but shudder. "What are you trying to do, kid?" "Nothing, but since you said that we'll be even closer, I remember that you have a daughter, right? Her name is Lin Shui, right?" "Xiao Chun, I'm telling you, don't have any ideas about shui. That's hard to say. Just like you said, it's not good for us to stop this kind of thing. I've successfully won back this round. If your son marries my daughter, then I'll let my son marry your daughter too. Everyone's even. Xiao Chen's face was full of smiles, while Lin Yun was in a bad mood. Xiao Chen walked away in laughter. Damn it, this Xiao Chen. Where's Shui? Tell her not to go out for the time being, and keep an eye on him. After Xiao Chen left, Lin Yun said with a face full of fear. Lin Yun had seen Xiao Chen's two sons. It was not an exaggeration to say that they were giants among men. If these two boys made a move, Shui would probably fall for them. Originally, Lin Yun was very happy that Lin Feng was able to get Xiao Chen's daughter. But now, Xiao Chen actually had ideas about her daughter, which made Lin Yun nervous. In a good mood, they returned to their residence. Seeing Xiao Chen return happily, Qin Shiru and the other girls asked curiously, "Husband, what are you so happy about?" "Haha, I found a marriage for Yao and Lao." "Oh, whose daughter is it?" "Haha, Lin Yun's daughter, Lin Shui." "How is it?" "Not bad, right?" Hearing this, Qin Shiru and the other girls burst into laughter. They finally understood why Xiao Chen was so happy. It was because of this matter. But putting this aside, Lin Yun's daughter, Lin Shui, was indeed not bad. She was a good match for Xiao Yao and Xiao Lao. Lin Shui is indeed not bad, but do you plan to choose Yao, or Lao, He had two sons, but Lin Yun only had one daughter. In this regard, Xiao Chen thought for a moment and said, "There's no hurry. When the time comes, we'll ask for their opinions. But let me tell you, Lin Yun's face, it really makes me feel good." When he thought of Lin Yun's dark face when he left, Xiao Chen couldn't help but laugh loudly. He was in a very good mood. At this time, Xiao Wan, who had gone out to play with Lin Feng for half a month, also returned. Seeing Xiao Wan walking into the courtyard, Xiao Chen called out, "Wan, father." Seeing Xiao Chen, Xiao Wan was also very happy. She quickly walked in front of Xiao Chen and jumped onto Xiao Chen's body. Although she had grown up, she was still very attached to Xiao Chen. What's more, in recent years, it had been difficult for her to see Xiao Chen. The father and daughter didn't have much time to spend together. Therefore, every time she saw Xiao Chen, Xiao Wan was very happy. Xiao Chen was the same. He patted Xiao Wan's shoulder with a smile and scolded with a smile. "You're so rude. You're already so old, and you're still like this. It's nothing. Who asked me to like daddy? Haha. But after all, you've grown up. I heard that you already have someone you like." As soon as these words came out, Xiao Wan's face turned red. She immediately jumped down and didn't dare to look at Xiao Chen's face. She lowered her head and didn't know what to do for a moment. Xiao Wan and Lin Feng really liked each other. Looking at his daughter's bashful appearance, Xiao Chen was amused and burst into laughter. He sighed in his heart. His daughter had indeed grown up. Now, she already had someone she liked. Don't worry, I'm not a stubborn person. Besides, I also like Lin Feng. A few days ago, I even went to see your Uncle Lin. I went to see Uncle Lin. Of course. His son almost kidnapped my daughter. How could I not go and ask him for an explanation? Xiao Wan couldn't help but smile. Her father was really cute. However, thinking about the relationship between her father and Uncle Lin, it didn't seem like there was any problem. It could be said that they were life and death friends. The two families had always been on good terms. Moreover, her mother and Lu Bingning were also very close. Thinking of this, Xiao Wan looked at Lin Yun, embarrassed. Lin Yun said, "Next time, I'll bring Lin Feng over for a meal. Oh, by the way, bring his sister Lin Shui, too." It had been a long time since he had seen Lin Feng. Besides, with his relationship with Xiao Wan, it was natural for Xiao Chen to see him. "Please add me to your collection. Please recommend me." Chapter 29:53. When Xiao Wan saw that her father wasn't angry at all and even took the initiative to invite Lin Feng over for dinner, she was happy. When Xiao Wan saw that her father wasn't angry and even took the initiative to invite Lin Feng over for dinner, she was happy. After all, even though Xiao Wan wasn't worried that Xiao Chen would object to her being with Lin Feng, Xiao Qin didn't know about it before, so she was a bit nervous. Now, from the looks of it, father seemed to be very supportive of this matter. But inviting Lin Feng over for dinner was normal. But why did he bring Lin Shui? Even though Xiao Wan and Lin Feng were friends and Lin Shui knew each other, it had nothing to do with Lin Shui. Dad, why did you bring little Shui? I have my reasons, of course. You can call me that. Xiao Chun replied with a smile. He was still thinking about how wonderful Lin Yun's expression would be if he managed to take Lin Shui down. With that thought in mind, Xiao Chun smiled and walked away. It seemed that he had gone to look for Xiao Yao and Xiao Wan. Mom, what's going on with Dad? Don't worry about him. He's getting more and more immature. Come, tell me what happened this time, said Xiao Wan. She sat down with Xiao Wan. Compared to Xiao Chun, Qin Shiru and the others cared more about Xiao Wan. They wanted to know whether she was happy with Lin Feng or not. The mother and daughters chatted while Xiao Chan went to see Xiao Yao. Xiao Yao had already come out of seclusion. When she saw Xiao Chun, Xiao Yao smiled. Father, yes, not bad. Your cultivation level is stable now. Xiao Yao had just broken through to the ancestor layer, so her cultivation level was stable. The father and son were sitting opposite each other in the courtyard. When Xiao Yao saw that Xiao Chun had taken the initiative to come over, she didn't understand. Father, why did you come to see me? Normally, Xiao Chun was very busy, so he rarely came to see Xiao Yao and Xiao Lao. Speaking of which, Xiao Chun really didn't care enough about her children. Xiao Chun also felt guilty about this. Xiao Chun answered Xiao Yao's question with a smile. I haven't had much to do in the past few days, so I came to visit you. Speaking of which, it's been a long time since we've talked like this. After making up an excuse, Xiao Chun and Xiao Yao started chatting. Of course, what he said was meaningless. Originally, Xiao Chun wanted to ask Xiao Yao what he thought of Lin Shui. However, Xiao Chun had never experienced something like this before. For a moment, he didn't know what to say. Xiao Yao could tell that her father seemed to have something to say, but kept avoiding the topic, so she took the initiative to ask. Father, if you have something to say, just say it. Okay. I've been thinking recently that you're not young anymore. I should find a marriage for you. I don't know what you think, so I plan to be steady. As soon as he said this, Xiao Yao was stunned at first. Then, she didn't know what to do. Xiao Chun didn't notice Xiao Yao's reaction at all. Of course, this matter is mainly up to you. If you don't want to, then just pretend that I didn't say anything. Father, actually, I already have someone I like. Oh, what? You also have someone you like? Who is it? He originally wanted to matchmake Xiao Yao and Shui Lin, but he didn't expect that Xiao Yao also had someone she liked. Why didn't he know about this? In fact, Xiao Chun was too surprised for a moment. Let alone Xiao Chun, even Xiao Yao's biological mother, Qin Shu, didn't know about Xiao Yao's matter. Looking at her father's stunned expression, Xiao Yao was even more embarrassed. Xiao Yao, who had been extremely intelligent since she was young, rarely showed such an expression on her face. Under Xiao Chen's questioning, Xiao Yao finally stammered. It's Dongfang Lin. Dongfang Lin? Dongfang Yan's daughter? A strange glint flashed in his eyes as he stared blankly at Xiao Yao. Xiao Chun didn't speak for a long time. The main thing was that he didn't know what to say. He never thought that Xiao Yao would actually get together with Dongfang Yan. It wasn't that Xiao Chun didn't like Dongfang Lin, but it was because of her mother. His relationship with Dongfang Lin's mother, Dongfang Yun, was a little complicated. Especially when they were in the land of creation, it made things a little awkward. Since then, although the two of them tacitly didn't mention that matter again, it wasn't something that could be easily forgotten. He had always deliberately avoided one-on-one contact with Dongfang Yun because it was a little awkward. But he never thought that his son would actually fall in love with Dongfang Yun's daughter. This was really unexpected. Moreover, Xiao Qin knew Xiao Yao's temper very well. She was a person who had her own opinions. Since Xiao Yao could say that she liked Dongfang Lin, then this matter couldn't be false. It seemed that he could only rely on Xiao Lao for Lin Shui's matter. He just didn't know if that little brat could win Lin Shui's heart. He also asked a few more questions about Dongfang Lin, such as when the two of them started dating. As for Xiao Wan, she went to Lin Yun's house the next day. Seeing Xiao Wan, Lin Yun, who was drinking tea in the courtyard, said with a smile. Wan Wan, you're here. Are you looking for Feng? Uncle Lin, Xiao Wan called out. Her face was red. Facing Lin Yun, for some reason, Xiao Wan was very nervous this time. Seeing this, Lin Yun also laughed happily. Xiao Qin's daughter was really good. It was very good to have her as her daughter-in-law. Previously, Lin Yun didn't know about Xiao Wan and Lin Feng's relationship, but now that she knew, the more she looked at Xiao Wan, the more satisfied she was. Such a daughter-in-law met Lin Yun's requirements. Being stared at by Lin Yun, Xiao Wan was very shy, but she still mustered up her courage and said, Uncle Lin, my father wants to invite you and brother Lin Feng to have a meal at his house. Haha, it's normal. Even if Xiao Chan didn't ask, I also wanted to have a gathering with the two families. After all, you and Feng Er's relationship can be settled. Father also said that he would invite Sister Shui. Lin Yun, who was originally very happy, suddenly heard that Xiao Chan wanted to invite Lin Shui. Suddenly, Lin Yun's face became gloomy. This guy is actually serious. When she thought of this, Lin Yun was extremely unhappy. Oh, this is what your father said? Yes, I don't know what father means, but he specifically said to invite Sister Shui. All right, I understand. You go to the backyard and look for Feng. We old guys don't want to get involved in the affairs of you young people. Xiao Wan left with a red face. Lin Yun's face was cold. What good Xiao Chun, he actually had ideas about my daughter. You want my daughter to be your daughter-in-law? Dream on, Xiao Chun. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 2954. 3 days later, Xiao Chun invited Lin Yun's family to a banquet. Of course, Lin Shui, whom he valued the most, also came. With a dark face, Lin Yun took the lead and walked into the courtyard. When she saw Xiao Chun, she snorted coldly, as if she wanted to tear him apart. Xiao Chun had only himself to blame for inviting Lin Shui to his place. Originally, it was impossible for Lin Yun to agree to let Lin Shui come, but she had no choice. In the end, Xiao Chun was one step ahead, and Lin Shui came along. He didn't care about Lin Yun's dark face at all. He took the initiative to walk up with a smile and said with a bright face, Feng is here too. Haha, not bad, not bad. Xiao Chun first praised Lin Feng. In front of Xiao Chun, Lin Feng was also very embarrassed. Fortunately, Xiao Chun's main target this time was not Lin Feng, so after a few words, Xiao Chun turned to look at Lin Shui. A strange look flashed in his eyes, and his smile became even more brilliant. Shui is really getting more and more beautiful. In this regard, Lin Shui blushed and lowered her head without saying anything. When Xiao Chun saw this, he couldn't stop smiling. Hey, are you done talking? Do you still want to eat? Seeing Xiao Chun staring at her precious daughter and even kept winking at Xiao Lao, Lin Yun couldn't help but snort coldly. Lin Yun couldn't help snorting coldly. This guy was simply brazen and didn't put him in his eyes at all. Ah, you're right. Let's eat first. In this regard, Xiao Chun said with a smile. He was in a good mood today, so he didn't argue with this guy. It wasn't the first time the two families had eaten together. In the past, when Xiao Chun and Lin Yun were not around, Lu Bingning and Qin Shuru would often get together. This led to a good relationship between the younger generation of the two families. Even without Xiao Chun saying anything, Xiao Lao had already started chatting with Shui Lin. Seeing Xiao Lao making Shui Lin laugh, Xiao Chun was in a good mood. This kid had some skills. He didn't even need to remind him. Compared to Xiao Chen's good mood, Lin Yun had mixed feelings about this. Especially after knowing what Xiao Chun was thinking and looking at Xiao Wan who was chatting with Shui Lin, he felt uncomfortable. It was as if something important was about to be snatched away from him. Today is a joyous day. Why are you pulling a long face? Come, let's drink. Xiao Chun took the initiative to invite Lin Yun to drink. She snorted coldly, but still raised her wine glass. During the meal, Xiao Chun and Lin Yun were secretly competing with each other. Looking at Qin Shu, Lu Bingning and the other girls shook their heads and smiled bitterly. Sometimes these two guys really didn't seem like the people who were called divine ancestors. When their little temper flared up, it really made people laugh. The meal was quite good. Other than Lin Yun and Xiao Chun secretly competing with each other, there was nothing else. Of course, everyone was not afraid that the two would really get angry. With their relationship, it was impossible for them to get angry over such a small matter. It was more like they were just fooling around. Give up. My daughter will never marry your son, Lin Yun said coldly before he left. In response, Xiao Chun smiled and said, "Don't worry, master. You can't say that. Who knows what these little guys are thinking? Let's not worry about this matter. Let's wait and see. I will never agree." Lin Yun took the initiative to leave with a dark face. Just after Lin Yun left, Xiao Chun gave Xiao Lao a thumbs up. Looking at his father's smile, Xiao Lao did not react for a while. Only Xiao Wan and Xiao Yao at the side held their foreheads and shook their heads helplessly. Their father obviously intended to let Xiao Lao pursue Lin Shui. Unfortunately, Xiao Lao knew nothing about these things. However, looking at Lin Shui's attitude toward Xiao Lao, she did not seem to hate him. Perhaps there was a chance. They returned to their room in a good mood. In the land of creation, Xiao Chun and the others were not in a good mood at this time. Ever since Xiao Chun and Lin Yun rescued the beast slaves, little Qing became more and more gloomy. No one knew what he was thinking. In the beginning, Old Tree and the others were worried that little Qing would attack the land of creation out of anger. It was not a good thing to attack the land of creation rashly under the current circumstances. There was still the origin world eyeing it covetously. The primogenitors hoped that the land of creation and the land of creation would fight. That way, they would be able to reap the benefits. However, after a few days, little Qing did not do anything strange. Old Tree and the others gradually relaxed. It was indeed good news that little Qing could remain calm and control his emotions. However, Old Tree and the others did not know that little Qing had never given up on revenge. Little Qing knew that he could not start a war with the land of creation. However, he was extremely unwilling to just let go. Therefore, little Qing had been preparing for something in the past few days. At this time, little Qing, who had not gone out for a few days, suddenly revealed a cold smile. He had finally gathered all the things he wanted. "Xiao Chun, Lin Yun, you deserve to die." His eyes were overflowing with killing intent. It was obvious that he had not truly let go of the anger in his heart. This time, little Qing wanted to give Xiao Chun and the others a painful lesson. Since he could not start a war with the land of creation, he had to at least leave a deep impression on Xiao Chun and the others. With this thought in mind, little Qing's figure flashed and instantly disappeared from the spot. Old Tree and the Stone Spirit Clan's patriarch happened to come. However, after looking around, they could not find little Qing's figure. "Where did the world spirit go?" asked the Stone Spirit Clan's patriarch, puzzled. The Old Tree was taken aback at first, but he quickly reacted and his expression changed abruptly. "Oh no, what's wrong? I'm afraid the world spirit has gone to the land of creation." With Old Tree's understanding of little Qing, he definitely would not let it go so easily. Therefore, Old Tree had been paying close attention to little Qing's movements in the past few days. He originally thought that little Qing would have calmed down after a few days. However, who would have thought that little Qing would not give up on revenge? At this moment, little Qing was not in the land of creation. The only place he could have gone to was the land of creation. However, the land of creation could not be underestimated. With the strength of Xiao Chun and the other divine ancestors, they were not afraid of little Qing. Little Qing had gone there alone. How could he gain any advantage? If the land of creation was really an existence that could be destroyed at will, it would not have been able to stand tall in this world. It had already been destroyed by the origin world and the land of creation. Because its strength could not be underestimated, everyone had chosen to temporarily control it. No one wanted to be the first to make the first move. Please collect, vote, recommend. Chapter 2955. Realizing that the world spirit might have gone to the land of all living beings to seek revenge, the old tree and the stone spirit patriarch instantly tensed up. Realizing that the world spirit might have gone to the land of all living beings to seek revenge, the old tree and the stone spirit patriarch instantly tensed up. Wasn't this a joke? How could a person be so reckless when going to the land of all living beings? The old tree and the others had always been aware of the change in the world spirit's personality, but they didn't expect it to have changed to this extent. If it was the old little Ching, she definitely wouldn't have done something so impulsive. But now, how should they put it? Little Ching's personality had become vengeful, and she couldn't bear the slightest grievance. This time, Xiao Chun and Lin Yun actually dared to barge into the land of creation to save someone. This was even more unbearable for little Ching. It was no wonder that little Ching would act like this. But now, the old tree and the others couldn't ignore it. After all, if something happened to the world spirit, the land of creation would probably be the first to be destroyed. At that time, even if Xiao Chun and the others didn't act, the primogenitors wouldn't let go of this opportunity. Therefore, without hesitation, the old tree gathered all the primordial creatures in the land of creation and hurried to the land of all living beings. At the same time, outside the land of all living beings, little Ching had arrived alone. As soon as she appeared, she was actually discovered by Xiao Chun and the others. After the incident with the bee slaves, Xiao Chun and the others naturally had to guard against little Ching's revenge. Therefore, Xiao Chun and the others took turns to be on guard every day. Their divine senses were comparable to the primogenitors, covering the entire land of all living beings. As long as there was any sign of trouble, they would immediately check it out. Today, it was Dongfang Yun's turn to be on guard. At first, there was no problem, but just now, Dongfang Yun clearly sensed little Ching's aura. Dongfang Yun abruptly opened his eyes, and a strange glint flashed through his eyes. He immediately contacted Xiao Chun and the others. Little Ching's appearance in the land of all living beings wasn't good news, and they couldn't afford the slightest bit of carelessness. Soon, Xiao Chun and the others arrived at the main hall. The world spirit really came. They're here. They're right outside the land of all living beings, but they don't seem to have any intention of entering. Dongfang Yun had been paying attention to little Ching's actions. The restrictions around the land of creation could not stop Xiao Chun and the others. Similarly, the restrictions in the land of living beings could not stop little Ching. But little Ching had no intention of entering the land of all living beings. Instead, she was setting up something outside the land of all living beings. Hearing Dongfang Yun's words, Xiao Chun and the others were stunned. Then, they spread out their divine senses and quickly found little Ching. Sure enough, little Ching circled around the land of all living beings and seemed to be setting up something. She had no intention of entering at all. What does that mean? Setting up a formation? He guessed that little Ching was probably setting up an array formation. At the same time, little Ching, who was outside, also felt Xiao Chun and the others' spiritual senses sweep over. He had long known that Xiao Chun and the others had discovered him, and that Xiao Chun and the others had been watching his every move. However, little Ching did not panic in the slightest. On the contrary, the corners of his mouth curled into a sneer. Little Ching only sneered when the last step of the arrangement was completed. Xiao Chun, Lin Yun, since you've already discovered me, why bother hiding? Following little Ching's voice, illusory figures condensed in the sky. Xiao Chun and the others appeared. Looking at little Ching, Xiao Chun took the initiative to speak. Little Ching, we don't have any enmity with the land of creation. There's no need to kill each other and let others take advantage of us. Xiao Chun did not want to fight to the death with little Ching. Now that he had created the land of all living beings, he could protect all living beings in the world and give them a stable environment to live in. Xiao Chun was already very satisfied. As for destroying the origin world and the land of creation, to be honest, Xiao Chun had never thought about it. He did not want to compete for anything, nor did he want to dominate the world. The only thing you wanted was to give all living beings in the world a stable life. Now that he had accomplished all of that, Shao Chun had no intention of becoming enemies with the land of creation. Earlier, he had saved the beast slave completely because they were friends. It was impossible for him to watch the beast slave die without doing anything. Therefore, during the rescue process, Shao Chun and Lin Yun basically did not kill anyone. They only considered it a success after rescuing the beast slave. However, Little Qing sneered in response to this. Have no intention of becoming enemies? Shao Chun, you betrayed me. Now you're saying you have no intention of becoming enemies? People who walk different paths cannot make plans together. Your actions are no different from those of the origin world. I'm just doing it for the sake of all living beings in the world. How could this be considered betrayal? If Little Qing had not insisted on learning from the origin world and grasping the revival technique, how could Shao Chun have done this? Little Qing clearly did not believe Shao Chun when she heard this. They had already come to this point, so it was useless to say anything now. Little Qing swept her gaze past Shao Chun and the others before she sneered in the end. There's no point in talking. Let's fight. Nether baleful soul refining formation activate. As soon as Little Qing spoke, an enormous formation that enveloped the entire land of creation rumbled as it was activated. In an instant, the land of creation was enveloped by the formation. The nether baleful soul refining formation can refine the souls of all living beings. Shao Chun, if you want to break through the formation, then come. As soon as she finished speaking, Little Qing's figure flashed into the formation. On the other hand, Shao Chun and the others in the hall had extremely unsightly expressions. They had never imagined that Little Qing had actually set up such a formation. Even though they didn't know much about the nether baleful soul refining formation, Shao Chun and the others clearly sensed that strands of indescribable aura had already seeped into the land of creation after the formation appeared. Even though the aura did not affect Shao Chun and the others, it was completely different to those with lower cultivations. Under the envelopment of such an aura, cultivators with lower cultivations simply couldn't hold on for long. If it was really as Little Qing had said, it was very likely that their souls would be directly refined. This formation is strange. We must break it as soon as possible, Emohi said first. There was no doubt that they had to break the formation. Little Qing's meaning was also very clear. If they wanted to break the formation, then they had to fight it out with it. Little Qing was waiting for them and the others in the formation. This was probably Little Qing's way of revenge. She didn't launch a large-scale attack, but she had used a formation, leaving Shao Chun and the others with no choice. Unless Shao Chun and the others were willing to give up on the numerous living beings in the land of creation, but that was obviously impossible. Shao Chun and the others would not give up on these people. Therefore, there was only one path left, and that was to break the formation and fight Little Qing head-on. Let's break the formation. Ancestor He and Dongfang Yun stay behind to prevent the formation from spreading and buy time. I, Lin Yun, and Mu Lingxian will go and break the formation, Shao Chun said. Regarding this, no one had any objections. Shao Chun and the others were enough to break the formation. Even if they had to fight against Little Qing, they could still fight. Please collect, please vote, please recommend me. Since this array formation was set up by Little Qing, then he could naturally move freely within the array formation. Now that he had successfully separated Shao Chun and the other two, Little Qing appeared in front of Shao Chun. He didn't look worried at all. Instead, he sneered. In a one-on-one situation, Little Qing wasn't afraid of Shao Chun. Although Shao Chun's strength had surpassed the primogenitors, there was still a gap between him and Little Qing. Shao Chun. He looked coldly at Shao Chun. Hearing that, Shao Chun said somewhat helplessly, I didn't expect that we would end up like this. Didn't you cause all of this? Wrong, it wasn't me. My goal is actually very simple. You also know that it's for the people of the world. As for the ownership of this world, I have no intention of fighting for it. Whether it's you or the primogenitors, I don't have any ambition. Heh, then why did you sneak into the place where I created this world? The beast slave is my friend. I can't just watch her die like that. It's that simple. Xiao Chun really just wanted to be content with his territory. He had no intention of fighting for the ownership of the origin world. The reason was simple. Xiao Chen's power didn't come from the world, but from the people of the world. Therefore, even if Xiao Chun fought for the ownership of the world wouldn't acknowledge him. Fundamentally, Xiao Chen's group was completely different from the primogenitors and Little Qing. That was why Xiao Chun said that Little Qing shouldn't start a war with the land of the living, because it was completely meaningless. It would only make the origin world happy. Moreover, even if Little Qing and the primogenitors won, Xiao Chun wouldn't be a threat to them. As long as they didn't have any ideas about the people of the world, Xiao Chun wouldn't take the initiative to provoke them. It should have been easy to understand, but because of the hatred in his heart, Little Qing had deliberately ignored this. He had treated them as enemies and ignored the origin world and the primogenitors. However, based on Little Qing's appearance, he hadn't ordered the army of the land of creation to attack them directly. Obviously, he'd restrained himself. He knew that once he started a full-scale war with Xiao Chen's group, it would only benefit the origin world. That was why Little Qing had set up a formation. Even though he was angry, he hadn't completely lost his mind. That was why Xiao Chun was willing to tell Little Qing so much. Little Qing's expression was still gloomy when he heard Xiao Chen's words. There's no need to say anything. It's meaningless to say all this now. Let's talk after the battle. Little Qing snorted coldly and attacked first. He pointed his finger at Xiao Chun. Xiao Chun had a thought when faced with Little Qing's attack. The dustless sword appeared in his hand, and he swung it fiercely. The two of them engaged in battle. This could be considered the first time Xiao Chun and Little Qing had fought head-on. Previously, Xiao Chun had fought Little Qing with Lin Yun and the others. This time, it was a fair battle between the two of them. However, in terms of combat strength, Xiao Chun was indeed inferior to Little Qing. However, after half a year, Xiao Chun had gradually grasped his own strength. His combat strength was indeed much stronger than half a year ago. He was suppressed by Little Qing as soon as the battle began. However, Xiao Chun wasn't too upset because it was within his expectations. As the spirit of the world, it was basically impossible for someone stronger than Little Qing to appear in the world. This was something that the world didn't allow. Otherwise, how could the spirit of the world represent the world? In a one-on-one situation, Little Qing was invincible. This was something that everyone acknowledged. However, it wasn't easy for Little Qing to kill Xiao Chun. At the very least, it was very difficult for Little Qing right now. She could suppress Xiao Chun, but it was very difficult for her to kill him. Not to mention that Xiao Chun had the strength of all living beings. It was even more difficult to kill him. With the strength of all living beings, Xiao Chen's vitality had reached a terrifying level. Even if there was only a drop of blood left, he could be reborn. Therefore, it was very difficult for Xiao Chun to die even if he wanted to. The two of them engaged in a fierce battle. No one in the formation stopped the two of them. Little Qing and Xiao Chun could fight to their heart's content, begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 2957. Inside the formation, Xiao Chun and Little Qing were fighting fiercely. Facing Xiao Chun, Little Qing attacked him like a madman. Inside the formation, Xiao Chun and Little Qing were fighting fiercely. Facing Xiao Chun, Little Qing attacked him like a madman. It was as if she would not stop until she killed Xiao Chun. However, what was strange was that although Little Qing's attacks seemed crazy, Xiao Chun, who was facing Little Qing, did not feel much killing intent. A strange look flashed in Little Qing's eyes. At the same time, Little Qing questioned in a deep voice, "Why? Why did you betray me?" Hearing this, Xiao Chen's heart froze. He seemed to have guessed Little Qing's thoughts and said indifferently, "I said that it wasn't betrayal. People who walk different paths cannot make plans together. Could it be that in your heart, I am inferior to all living beings? Little Qing really hated Xiao Chun. However, Little Qing's hatred was because of Xiao Chen's betrayal. The so-called hatred was only because she could not let go. Therefore, whenever she encountered something related to Xiao Chun, Little Qing would become a different person. From the beginning to the end, since the day she was born, Little Qing had no friends. Xiao Chun was the first person that Little Qing truly accepted. Unlike Lin Yun, Mu Lingxian, and the others, Little Qing truly treated Xiao Chun as her friend. Little Qing felt very comfortable with Xiao Chun. It was precisely because she valued Xiao Chun that when Xiao Chun resisted her, Little Qing felt that it was a betrayal. Because in Little Qing's mind, friends should trust each other unconditionally. They should be inseparable no matter what. However, Xiao Chun chose to betray her for the sake of those ants in the world. This made Little Qing feel very hurt. It was also this hurt that made Little Qing's personality change drastically. She became violent, impulsive, and angry. Because whenever she heard news about Xiao Chun, Little Qing could not control her emotions. She was still reluctant to part with him, which was why Little Qing was like this. If Xiao Chun had treated Little Qing like an ordinary person, then things would not have developed to this point. Looking at the red-eyed Little Qing, Xiao Chun seemed to have guessed something. He took a deep breath as he attacked. As I said, that's not betrayal. Actually, if you're willing to sit down and talk, we don't have to be enemies. Is that even possible? Little Qing asked coldly. His attacks became even more ferocious. As he attacked, he said to Xiao Chun coldly, "Ever since you entered the land of creation, the first time we met, I've treated you as a friend. Did you know that although I've been a spirit of heaven and earth for so many years, I've never had a single friend by my side? It was you who let me know the meaning of friends, but it was also you who betrayed me. It was the first time I felt betrayed by a friend. In your heart, I'm not even comparable to those ants. For those ants, you'd rather fight me. Back in the Netherchild universe, I cut off your support and let you fight Ancestor Mu alone. But did you know that I've been secretly paying attention to the Netherchild universe? As long as there's danger, I'll definitely take action immediately." Seeing him again after half a year, Little Qing couldn't help but roar and reveal his inner thoughts for the past half a year. This was often the case. If you had never possessed something before, then you wouldn't feel much about it. However, once you had something and lost it again, it would be completely different. Little Qing felt the meaning of the word friend from Xiao Chun. After breaking off with Xiao Chun, Little Qing felt lonely for the first time. And that loneliness was something that Old Tree and the others couldn't replace. Although Old Tree and the others accompanied him, they weren't Xiao Chun, and Little Qing had never treated them as his friends. Because of this, whenever he thought of Xiao Chun and even wanted to take the initiative to look for Xiao Chun, Little Qing would become abnormally manic. This was also the reason why Little Qing's personality had changed so much in the past half a year. It was because Little Qing thought of Xiao Chun but didn't know what to do. Every time this happened, Little Qing couldn't help but feel annoyed. Upon hearing Little Qing's words, Xiao Chun didn't answer. He immediately stopped what he was doing and looked at Little Qing with a complicated gaze. As a spirit of heaven and earth, Little Qing was like a child when it came to these matters. Living in the land of creation all year round, Little Qing was indeed very lonely. Otherwise, he wouldn't have sealed his soul to experience a different life. He recalled the first time he saw Little Qing. At that time, Little Qing was just a stalk of grass. In fact, he should have known from the beginning that Little Qing was really a very lonely person. His appearance allowed Little Qing to experience the feeling of having friends by his side. Unfortunately, this kind of companionship ultimately caused Little Qing to be deeply hurt. A break between friends was something that Little Qing had never encountered before. He didn't know how to deal with it at all. That was why he seemed to have become a different person. Attack! What's the meaning of this? Little Qing shouted coldly when he saw Xiao Chun stop what he was doing. The coldness in his eyes didn't recede by much. However, Xiao Chun wasn't worried at all when he saw how Little Qing looked like he wanted to tear him apart. This was because Xiao Chun understood that Little Qing didn't want to kill him. As a result, Xiao Chen only smiled when he heard Little Qing's words. I'm not fighting. What's the point of fighting with friends? Who's your friend? Little Qing was taken aback. He immediately shouted angrily. However, the trace of panic in his eyes was clearly visible. Hearing the word friend from Xiao Chun, Little Qing couldn't help but feel excited. However, he didn't dare to show it on his face. Xiao Chun couldn't help but laugh when he saw Little Qing's change. He thought to himself, Little Qing hasn't changed at all. It's all because his desire to win is too strong. Just like when I first met Little Qing, this spirit of heaven and earth is actually pure and innocent. Most of the time, he's like a child who doesn't know the ways of the world. However, after opening the land of creation, Little Qing was too eager to win in the face of the threat from the primogenitors. In some aspects, Little Qing was indeed inferior to the primogenitors. Especially in terms of scheming, he was worlds apart from them. Xiao Chun said with a smile on the face of Little Qing's angry roar. Aren't we considered friends? No, I don't have a friend like you. In order to hide the panic in his heart, Little Qing shouted angrily and threw a punch at Xiao Chun. In the face of Little Qing's attack, Xiao Chun didn't dodge, nor did he intend to defend himself. He simply looked at Little Qing calmly. In response, Little Qing's fist stopped steadily in front of Xiao Chun at the last moment and didn't really hit him. Please add me to your collection. Please recommend me. Chapter 2958. Xiao Chun smiled faintly when he saw that Little Qing's fist had stopped at the last moment. Xiao Chun smiled faintly when he saw that Little Qing's fist had stopped at the last moment. In response, Little Qing couldn't help but blush as she said proudly, Don't worry. What do you mean by that? Do you think I don't dare to kill you? Isn't it too serious to talk about killing between friends? Who's your friend? I said we're not friends. Little Qing refused to admit it no matter what, but Xiao Chun had already caught the look of panic in his eyes. Xiao Chun was amused by the fact that Little Qing refused to admit it. He wondered why he had never realized that Little Qing could be so arrogant. Little Qing clearly thought so, but he refused to admit it. Was he afraid that Xiao Chun would mock him? Xiao Chun had no intention of fighting with Little Qing because it wasn't necessary. Why should friends fight to the death? As for the sentient beings in this world, Little Qing had indeed done it. Besides, Xiao Chun was certain that Little Qing didn't value the sentient beings in this world. Indeed, Little Qing didn't value the sentient beings in this world because from Little Qing's point of view, the sentient beings in this world were dispensable. At that moment, Little Qing made such a choice because he wanted to win too much in the face of the pressure from the primogenitors. To put it bluntly, Little Qing broke off their relationship because both of them didn't want to lower their heads. Little Qing wouldn't take the initiative to explain anything to Xiao Chun. On the other hand, Xiao Chun was secretly upset because of Little Qing's actions. It was because both of them were like this that they ended up like this. However, Xiao Chun didn't expect Little Qing to be under so much pressure in this half a year. Little Qing's personality changed a lot because of him, which surprised many people. It was just like what the bee slaves in Song said. They thought that Little Qing had changed, but in fact, the real reason was because of him. A person who didn't know how to express himself could only hide his thoughts completely in his heart. No one else could guess what he was thinking. Thinking of the pressure that Little Qing had to bear alone for the past 6 months, Xiao Chen's gaze softened. On the other side, Lin Yun and Mu Lingxian, who were also inside the formation, were completely unaware of what had happened between Xiao Chun and Little Qing. At this moment, the two of them were completely lost. This formation had trapped the two of them to death. No matter what they did, it seemed like there was no way to break out. However, it was not difficult to break this formation. As long as they could find the formation core, they could easily break it. However, the problem was that Lin Yun and Mu Lingxian couldn't find the location of the array. Chapter 2959. Xiao Qing took the initiative to suggest sitting down for a drink. Hearing this, Xiao Qing was taken aback at first, but then he said in a panic. Xiao Qing took the initiative to suggest sitting down for a drink. Hearing this, Xiao Qing was startled at first, but soon after, she spoke in a somewhat panicked manner. I don't want to drink. Although her mouth said no, her evasive eyes had already completely exposed the thoughts in little Qing's heart. Looking at Xiao Qing's current appearance, Xiao Chun smiled helplessly. This guy really doesn't mean what he says. After the previous exchange and conversation, Xiao Chun had completely understood Xiao Qing's intentions. Moreover, from the beginning to the end, Xiao Qing didn't have any killing intent towards him. Although Xiao Qing hated him, with Xiao Qing's character, he probably couldn't kill him. In Xiao Chen's opinion, Xiao Qing's character was like a child who hadn't grown up, arrogant and immature. Regardless of whether Xiao Qing agreed or not, Xiao Chun grabbed his arm and said with a smile, "Let's go, I have a lot of them. You'll definitely like them." For a moment, Xiao Qing seemed to be even more flustered, and Xiao Chun directly said without any explanation, "Okay, remove the formation. If there's anything you want to say, just say it." It seemed that he was forced by Xiao Chun, but with Xiao Qing's strength, if he didn't want to, who could force him to do something he didn't like? The formation was removed, and soon, the formation that enveloped the entire land of all living beings was removed. Xiao Chun also saw Lin Yun and Mu Lingxian, who had been looking for him, in the formation. At the same time, when the two saw Xiao Chun, they were stunned because Xiao Chun was holding Xiao Qing's hand, and they seemed to be very intimate. "What's going on?" For a moment, the two of them didn't react, but Xiao Chun said with a smile, "Let's go and have a drink together. I'm afraid we'll have to wait a while." Hearing this, although Lin Yun didn't know what happened between Xiao Chun and Xiao Qing, she still looked at Dongfang Yun, Old Shu, and the others were fighting fiercely. Old Tree and the others had come to rescue little Qing. At this moment, both sides were engaged in an intense battle. Seeing this, Xiao Chun smiled helplessly. He said to Little Green, "Tell them to stop. There's no point in continuing the fight anyway." Little Qing's expression was a little strange, but she quickly stopped everyone. Seeing that Little Qing was safe and sound, Old Tree and the others naturally did not want to continue fighting. After all, Dongfang Yun and the others were not weak. Although there were only 3 of them, Old Tree and the others did not gain any advantage. On the contrary, he had been suppressed from the very beginning. Facing Dongfang Yun's group, Old Tree and the others felt as if they were facing 3 primogenitors. Little Qing replied proudly, "It's all right. Hey, that's good." He didn't expose Little Qing. This fellow's personality was like this, and it would probably be very difficult for him to adapt in such a short time. Moreover, it was practically impossible for Little Qing to admit that she couldn't let go of Xiao Chun. Therefore, Xiao Chun didn't dwell on this issue. It was fine as long as he understood it in his heart. Moreover, Xiao Chun also liked a friend like Little Qing. He would just let the past be. On the way to their residence, which was the most important part of the land of all beings, Little Qing said something seemingly unintentionally. The laws of heaven and earth in the land of all beings don't seem to be complete. This wasn't false. Because of the matter with Little Qing, Xiao Chun and the others had directly separated the land of all beings from the laws of heaven and earth. By doing so, they had completely severed the control of the land of all beings. Even cultivators wouldn't be tested by the heavenly punishment when they cultivated and broke through. However, while there were benefits, there were also disadvantages. The development of the land of all beings wasn't complete. This was something that couldn't be helped. Although Xiao Chun and the others' strength had advanced by leaps and bounds and couldn't be mentioned in the same breath, they weren't gods. There were some things that were difficult to do. The power of the laws wasn't complete, so there was no way to solve it. Hearing Little Qing's words, Xiao Chun smiled faintly, as if he had seen through Little Qing's thoughts. "Then I'll have to trouble you, the spirit of heaven and earth. How about it? Do you want to help me complete the laws of the land of all beings?" Completing the laws of heaven and earth was absolutely beneficial to the land of all beings. Xiao Chun wasn't worried about anything. begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 2960. Xiao Chun asked Little Qing to fix the laws of the land of living beings. Little Qing still had a proud expression on his face when he heard that. Xiao Chun asked Little Qing to fix the laws of the land of living beings. Little Qing still had a proud expression on his face when he heard that. I'm not helping you. It's just something I should do as a world spirit. Of course. Xiao Chun smiled and didn't say anything else. Little Qing didn't refuse. He was willing to fix the laws of the land of living beings. Actually, Little Qing was already prepared to do that when Xiao Chun took the initiative to mention it. However, it was still very difficult for him to admit that he was helping Xiao Chun. After all, Little Qing didn't know how to face Xiao Chun at the moment. It was like two friends who had a conflict and didn't know how to face each other. He wasn't in a hurry to fix the laws of the land of living beings. Since Little Qing had agreed, Xiao Chun didn't think Little Qing would go back on his word. Xiao Chun pulled Little Qing all the way to the hall. After everyone was seated, Xiao Chun directly took out fine wine. Of course, he also prepared delicious food. Xiao Chun sat with Little Qing and spoke with a smile on his face. Actually, we're not enemies. We're friends, right? Little Qing didn't answer. He just lowered his head and drank wine. On the other hand, Xiao Chun continued. Back then, you wanted to learn from the origin world and attack the living beings of the world just to win. However, there's no need for that now, right? I can help you defeat the origin world, and I won't fight with you for anything. After all, you're the world spirit. No one can change that. However, you have to promise that you won't casually kill the living beings of the world in the future. Xiao Chun and Little Qing weren't just friends. More importantly, there was no irreconcilable conflict between them. To put it bluntly, Xiao Chun couldn't possibly threaten Little Qing's position as the world spirit. Moreover, Little Qing didn't have to worry about Xiao Chun's mansion. After all, their strengths were completely different. Little Qing's strength came from the world, while Xiao Chun's strength came from the living beings of the world. One was the world spirit, and the other was the guardian of the living beings of the world. So, there was a condition for cooperation. Unlike the origin world and the land of creation, there was no chance for them to cooperate, because there was no way to cooperate. How could Little Qing and the primogenitors cooperate? The power of both sides came from the same source. Only by devouring the other side could one become a true spirit of heaven and earth. Therefore, cooperation was impossible. On the other hand, Xiao Chun's team didn't have such a problem. When the origin world was about to be destroyed, Xiao Chun and Little Qing wouldn't have a conflict because of this. How's the preparation for the world annihilation deity? Soon. Good. As long as the world annihilation deity appears, our origin world will be invincible. At that time, even if Xiao Chun and the spirit of heaven and earth join forces, our origin world won't be afraid. Okay, he didn't know what the world annihilation deity was, but looking at the primogenitor's expressions, it seemed that they were very confident in him. They weren't even afraid of Little Qing and Xiao Chun joining forces. As soon as he finished speaking, the primogenitor's figures slowly disappeared. At this stage, they still needed to prepare a lot of things. In Xiaozu's courtyard, Hu Huang and Xiaozu sat opposite each other. Hu Huang looked at Xiaozu with a complicated expression. Aren't you worried that the spirit of heaven and earth will join forces with Xiao Chun and the others? Hu Huang didn't know what he was feeling. Originally, Xiao Chun and the others were just like him. However, after obtaining the power of all living beings, they had become existences comparable to the primogenitors. Even Hu Huang, an ancient being, could only look up to them now. As an ancient being, Hu Huang was naturally very proud. However, whenever he talked about Xiao Chun and the others, Hu Huang's expression became very complicated. It was because Xiao Chun and the others, who were born in the lowest class, had now become the top existences in this world. Even ancient living beings like them had no choice but to retreat. Back then, when Xiao Zhu had said that he wouldn't have the slightest chance of winning against Xiao Chun, only God knew what Hu Huang was thinking. The beings of the world who had once regarded them as living beings had given them the fiercest resistance in this matter. He originally thought that he could easily suppress everything, but in the end he found that everything was already out of his control. The primogenitors had no choice but to use their final trump card, the creation God plan, to deal with all of this. One had to know that the creating God plan was the true trump card of the primogenitors. Once it was implemented, the final outcome would be completely out of their control. Therefore, to be able to force the primogenitors to such a state, one could see how great the pressure was. While Qiu Zhu and Hu Huang were talking, no one knew that in a small world in the origin world that no one knew about, a red ball of light was flickering with a faint blood-red light. The blood-red light flickered brightly and dimly, as though it was nurturing some kind of life. This was the creation God plan. A brand new life was being nurtured in this ball of blood-red light. His power didn't come from the world, nor did it come from living beings. Instead, it came from the souls of the dead. He had absorbed the souls of all the people who had died in the world since ancient times and obtained great power from it. Even the primogenitors were afraid of this kind of power. Therefore, the primogenitors felt very complicated about the creation God plan. Although the creation God plan was a method of the primogenitors, when a life in this ball of blood-red light was truly born, no one knew what the outcome would be. If this was a real life, it would have its own thoughts, and the primogenitors wouldn't be able to control it completely. This made the whole thing filled with too many unknowns. For example, what would this life want to do after it was born? Would it be willing to cooperate with the primogenitors? Or would it become bloodthirsty after absorbing so much death energy and only want to destroy everything in the world? No one could guarantee this. The primogenitors wouldn't have done this if they hadn't been forced into a corner. In fact, this ball of blood-red light had existed for a long time. It was the last resort that the primogenitors had left for themselves. However, the primogenitors wouldn't have chosen this step if they hadn't been forced into a corner. The life born in the blood-red light had always been in a dormant state. The primogenitors had only been constantly injecting energy into it. However, they had never thought of awakening it. Now it was different. The primogenitors had completely awakened it. As for what would be born in this blood vessel, even the primogenitors didn't know. Or rather, they themselves weren't sure what kind of thing they had created. No one knew what would happen if it was born from the power of death. After all, no one in the world could truly understand the meaning of death. No one knew how powerful the power of death was. Xiao Qin was stunned at first. Then he smiled and asked, "You've been gone for more than a month. Where have you been?" Hearing this, Xiao Lao replied casually, "Dad, Lin Shui and I went on a trip." Xiao Lao's personality had been like this since he was young. Compared to Xiao Yao, Xiao Lao was straightforward. It seemed like he would never lie. On the other hand, Lin Shui blushed when she saw Xiao Chun. After calling him Uncle Xiao, she blushed and lowered her head without saying a word. He could tell at a glance that there was something wrong with these two people. However, Xiao Chun was extremely supportive of this. If Xiao Lao could really win Lin Shui's heart, he would definitely be happy. Xiao Chun was happier than anyone else, especially when he thought of Lin Yun's expression at that time. Xiao Chun couldn't help but laugh out loud. Good, good, good. Ha! Looking at Xiao Lao, he couldn't help but nod and laugh. For a moment, Xiao Lao didn't know what to do. He did have some feelings for Lin Shui. However, his father didn't have to be so happy. After all, His elder brother and Dongfang Ling were even more passionate than him. He had never seen his father so happy. Xiao Lao naturally didn't know that Dongfang Ling couldn't be compared to Lin Shui. It wasn't that Dongfang Ling was a good. She was also a great beauty. Moreover, she was compatible with Xiao Yao in all aspects. However, the main problem was that Dongfang Ling was Dongfang Yun's daughter. There was already some awkwardness between Xiao Chun and Dongfang Yun. Although the two of them didn't talk about those things anymore, it didn't mean that it didn't happen. Please add, please vote, please recommend. End of chapter. That you're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.